Stop what you are doing right now. If you are around other people, I need you to physically move to a private space before this message goes any further. Go to your room, close the door, put your headphones in if you have them. What is about to happen in this message cannot land the way it is meant to land if you are not alone. This is not a performance instruction. This is a protection instruction. What God is about to say through this message is specific, it is personal, and it belongs in the private space, not the shared one. Chosen one. God specifically sent this message to a private place, not to an audience, not to a crowd, to the one who is alone right now, to the one who closed the door. That is not an accident. The privacy of this moment is not circumstantial. It is designed. The message you are about to receive was held back from the public setting because the public setting does not have the interior conditions to receive it. You do. You are in the right place. You closed the right door. Stay here. You closed the door. You turned aside from everything else in this moment and chose this private space. That act, before any teaching, before any tool, is itself the first declaration that something in you is alive and reaching. Let heaven see it right now. Type 777 inches the comments. The 3 sevens are the number of divine completion, of the finished work, of the thing God carries all the way through to its full end, 777. What God started in the private place of your life is not finished. I need to tell you why I asked you to be alone before I said anything else. It is not because what is in this message is shameful. It is because what is in this message is sacred. And sacred things land differently in private than they do in public. There is a reason that the most significant encounters in the sacred record happened in private spaces. Moses was alone when he saw the burning bush, not in a crowd, not in a service. Alone on the far side of the desert. Elijah was alone under the juniper tree when the angel came with the provision. Mary was alone when Gabriel appeared with the word that would change the course of history. Paul was alone on the road to Damascus when the light came. The pattern is not coincidental. When God wants to say something that will change the direction of a life, he creates the private setting first. He removes the witnesses. He collapses the distance between himself and the specific one he is addressing. He gets the person alone. And then he speaks. You are the one he got alone today. Not because you are in trouble, not because something is wrong, because something is right. Because what God is about to say to you belongs in the private space, the space where the performance stops and the real interior is present, the space where he can speak to who you actually are, rather than who you have learned to be in the shared spaces of your life. So, I want to ask you to do something specific right now, before I continue. I want you to take a physical breath, in through the nose, out through the mouth. And with the exhale, I want you to deliberately release whatever you were carrying when you walked into this room, whatever the day gave you, whatever the conversation left behind. Whatever the silence of being alone in this space brings up, set it down at the door. What is about to happen in here requires the full interior, not the managed version, the real one. Now, I want to read you something. It is not from a theologian. It is not from a commentary. It is from the interior of the person God is speaking to in this moment. It is the description of the one who was meant to close the door and be alone for this message. I want you to let me read it and tell me how many of these you recognize. The first recognition sign: you have always known, somewhere in the deep interior, that you were not the same, not in an arrogant sense. In the sense that the things that were enough for other people were not enough for you. Not because you wanted more in the material sense, but because the interior of you has always been reaching for something that the ordinary life could not fully name or fully hold. You have watched the people around you settle into satisfaction with things that left you still searching, not because you were ungrateful, but because the longing in you was too large for what was offered. And you have sometimes wondered whether the largeness of the longing was a character flaw or a calling. It is a calling. The second recognition sign. You have had experiences in your private moments that you do not talk about in the shared spaces. Not because they were shameful, but because you learned early that the shared spaces were not built to hold them. You have had the sense of being spoken to in the silence. You have had the knowing that preceded the event. You have had the moment in the room alone when something shifted in the interior without any external cause. When the peace came without explanation, or the clarity arrived without prompting. And you have learned to hold those moments quietly, not because you doubt them, but because the vocabulary for them is not always available in the spaces where you spend your ordinary time. The third recognition sign. The private space is where you are most yourself. The you who exists in the shared spaces, the one who navigates the social requirements and the relational performances and the presentations you have learned to give to the different people in your life, that you is real. But it is not the most real version of you. The most real version of you exists in the room with the door closed, in the silence, before the words start, in the interior that does not edit itself for an audience. And the fact that you are here right now, that you were willing to close the door and be alone with this message, is evidence of how much that most real version of you knows it needs to hear what is coming. The fourth recognition sign. You carry a weight that you do not always have words for. Not the weight of your problems, though you have those too. A different weight. The weight of the things you perceive that others do not seem to perceive. The weight of the concerns that are larger than personal circumstances. The weight of a sense of responsibility that extends beyond your ordinary life into something you cannot always name but cannot put down. You have tried to put it down, it comes back. Not as a burden you chose, but as a calling you were given. The fifth recognition sign. There are seasons in your life that you have not been able to explain to anyone who was not in them with you. Seasons that from the outside looked like stasis or struggle or stepping back, but that from the inside were the most significant formation seasons of your spiritual life. Seasons in the private place. Seasons in the desert. Seasons in the room with the door closed and no audience and no confirmation. And the long practice of staying present with God in the silence, when the silence was the only thing offered. Those seasons produced something in you that the public seasons could not produce. And the you who is in this room right now is the product of those private seasons. The sixth recognition sign. The calling you carry has a private dimension that most people in your life cannot see. The intercession, the watching, the quiet holding of things in prayer that you do not announce. The faithfulness in the unseen that does not generate visible confirmation on a reliable timeline. The keeping of the sacred things sacred. The choosing, again and again, to bring what belongs to God into the private space before it goes into the public one. That choosing is not an accident. That choosing is a spiritual discipline. That choosing is evidence of a chosen one who understands that the private place is where the formation happens before the public place receives the fruit. The seventh recognition sign. Something in you responded when you saw the title of this message. Not just curiosity, recognition. The words, "Go to your room and close the door," landed in a specific place in your interior that a random title would not have reached. There was a pull, a knowing, a sense that whoever made this message made it for you specifically. Not for the people who clicked past it, for you. And the fact that you are here, in the private space, with the door closed, means that the recognition was right. The message was for you. You are exactly where you were meant to be. There are more recognition signs, but I want to pause here and ask you something before I continue. If you recognized yourself in 5 or more of those descriptions, if the private space is your most real space, if the weight you carry has a dimension others cannot see, if the calling has a hidden quality that has cost you things the public cannot account for, I want you to know something right now. You are not strange. You are not broken. You are not someone who failed to integrate into the ordinary life because of a character flaw. You are someone who was designed for a different kind of life and has been in the specific formation that the designed life requires. The room you are in right now is not just physical space. It is the representation of the interior space that your formation has been building in you. The willingness to be alone with God. The capacity to close the door on the noise and the performance and the management and the presentation, and to be in the raw, unedited, real interior. That capacity is one of the rarest things in the contemporary spiritual world. It is also one of the most powerful. The person who can be fully present in the private space with God is the person who carries what no crowd performance can produce. I want to say something before I continue. Something I have noticed, and I say this not as an accusation, but as a recognition. There is a specific thing many of you do. The first moment, the external noise drops. You do not simply sit in the quiet. Within 60 seconds, something in you reaches. For the phone, for a different sound, for anything that fills the space that just opened. Not because you lack discipline, because the 60 seconds of genuine silence revealed something that felt more threatening than helpful. The interior that the activity had been suppressing finally had space to speak. I have seen this pattern in the chosen one in the formation season more times than I can count. The avoidance of the private space is not spiritual laziness. It is the protection response of the interior that has been carrying too long. The recognition of that pattern is itself the beginning of the turning aside. Before I go further into this message, I want to name something that is in the description and the pinned comment below. Not yet, not fully, but I want to plant the seed of it now so that when we arrive at it later in the message, you will recognize the connection. There is something available for the chosen one whose private space has been crowded by the noise of an overactive interior. For the one whose silence is not quiet, whose room, even when the door is closed and the external world is excluded, is still loud with the interior noise of a mind that has been carrying for too long. For that specific person, there is something in what I just described that is waiting in the description below. We will come back to it. For now, let that open door stay open in your awareness as we continue. Now, I want to go deeper into the private space with you. I want to talk about what it actually costs the chosen one to be the person who closes the door. Because the door closing is not always simple. The door closing is sometimes the act that requires the most courage of all the acts the chosen one performs. It is easy to be the person in the crowd. The crowd provides cover. The crowd provides the sense of movement, the sense that something is happening, the sense of belonging to a larger momentum. Being in the crowd is the comfortable option. Closing the door is the costly one. The chosen one who closes the door is the one who is willing to say, "What I need is not available in the shared space. What I need is not what the crowd can offer. What I need requires the private encounter." And the act of saying that, even to themselves in the interior, is often the act that the formation has been building toward for years. The capacity to leave the crowd without guilt, to close the door without apology, to be alone with God without the performance anxiety that the shared space produces. That capacity is one of the primary outputs of the formation. I want to tell you about a specific dynamic that happens in the interior of the chosen one who has spent significant time in the public spaces, in the shared spaces, in the crowd. The dynamic is this: the public space trains the interior to perform, not in a cynical way, not in a false way, but the presence of observers changes what happens inside the interior of the one who is being observed. The performance is subtle, it is often unconscious, but it is real. And over time, the chosen one who has lived primarily in the shared spaces begins to lose access to the unperformed version of themselves. The raw interior gets covered by the layers of presentation until the chosen one is no longer sure which version of themselves is the real one. The room with the door closed is the place where that covering comes off, not all at once, not painlessly. But the private space, the genuine solitude, the room where there is no audience and no performance requirement, is the place where the real interior re-emerges, where the chosen one remembers who they were before the crowd shaped them, where the longing that predates the presentation reasserts itself, where God can speak to the real version rather than the presented version. This is why the instruction to go to your room and close the door is not just a viewing directive, it is a spiritual prescription. The act of creating the private space is itself the first step of the encounter. Before a word is spoken, before a truth is revealed, before any element of what this message carries has landed, the act of being alone, of closing the door, of removing the external witnesses, is already the beginning of something real. You have already done the first thing. You are already in it. Let me tell you now about what happens in the private space, what God does in solitude that he does not do in the crowd. Not because he is limited by the crowd, because the person in the crowd is different from the person alone. The crowd person and the alone person occupy the same body, but they have access to different interior depths. And what God wants to do in this message requires the depths that are only available in the private space. The 8th recognition sign. I mentioned 7 earlier, and I want to give you this one now that you are deeper into this space. The 8th sign is this: you have had a relationship with solitude that is different from most people you know. Not the solitude of loneliness, though you may have experienced that too. The solitude of the chosen. The solitude of the person who needs the private place to function, who is restored by silence rather than depleted by it, who processes in the interior before they speak in the exterior, who has sometimes been misread as withdrawn or aloof, when actually they were doing the most essential work of their interior life. This relationship with solitude is not a personality trait to be overcome. It is a design feature of the specific kind of chosen one you are. The person who can tolerate solitude, who can be present in the silence without filling it with noise, who can sit with God in the private space without the discomfort driving them back to the crowd, that person has been built for something that requires the private encounter. You were built for what the private encounter produces. The burning bush does not appear to the person who walks past it. It appears to the one who makes the turning aside. The 9th recognition sign. There is a specific quality to the sense of calling that you carry. It does not feel like ambition. It does not feel like the desire for recognition or success, or the outcomes that the culture values. It feels more like a responsibility that was placed on you rather than chosen by you. It feels like something you would have put down if it let you put it down, like something that is not fully yours to manage or control, but that you are accountable to in some way that exceeds your own preference, like a stewardship of something larger than you that requires you to be in the private place consistently, to be available in the interior, to be present in the solitude, so that what is being given to you through the private encounter can be tended and carried and deployed at the right moment. That sense of appointed responsibility, the calling that feels more like a commission than a career path, more like an assignment than an aspiration, is the fingerprint of the chosen one who was designed for the private encounter. You were commissioned in the private space. You were formed in the private space. And the message that is being released to you right now is coming to you in the private space, because that is where it has always been destined to arrive. Now, I want to say something that most messages in this space do not say. I want to say it plainly. The private space is not always peaceful. The room with the door closed is not always the serene sanctuary of spiritual experience. Sometimes it is the room where the noise gets louder because the external distractions are gone, and the interior is finally quiet enough to hear what has been running beneath the surface. Sometimes it is the room where the grief comes up, the confusion comes up, the questions that do not have easy answers come up, the exhaustion that the activity was masking comes up, and the chosen one who closes the door thinking they are entering a sanctuary sometimes finds themselves instead in a laboratory, in the specific conditions that the formation uses to process what needs to be processed, to surface what needs to surface, to bring up what needs to come up so that it can be met in the private space, rather than erupting unexpectedly in the shared spaces. I want to say to that chosen one, the one who closed the door and found the room louder rather than quieter, that what you found in the room is not evidence that you did the wrong thing by coming in. What you found is evidence that the private space is working correctly. What is coming up is what was ready to be met. What is surfacing is what the formation has been building, the interior conditions to process. You are not in trouble in the private room. You are in the right room for what needs to happen next. I want to name something specific right now, something that most messages on this topic skip past because it sounds like a problem. It is not a problem. It is the most important thing to understand about the private space in the formation season. Here is what some of you have experienced. You close the door, you sit down, the external noise drops, and the interior gets louder, not quieter, not loud, with peace and divine encounter. Loud, with the specific cycling of thoughts the activity was suppressing, the email you have not sent, the conversation that did not resolve, the situation that is still open. They surface, all of them, the moment the quiet begins. And you have drawn a conclusion about that experience. One of two conclusions. Either the private practice is not working for you specifically, or something is wrong with you spiritually. The exterior quieted, the interior did not. Therefore, personal failure. I am not doing this correctly. That conclusion is wrong, and I want to show you why it is wrong. What is actually happening in that moment has a name. I am going to call it the carried weight. The carried weight. The mind of the chosen one in the formation season has been in carrying mode, holding what you have been holding, navigating what you have been navigating, processing at depth what the ordinary person processes at the surface. The exterior activity, the work, the movement, the noise, was not creating the carrying, it was suppressing it, giving it somewhere to be without surfacing fully. The moment you close the door and the exterior noise drops, the carried weight finally has space to speak. And it speaks, loudly, specifically, with the exact inventory of everything that has been carried and not yet resolved. That is not the failure of the private practice. That is the private practice functioning correctly. The silence did not create the weight. The silence revealed what was already there. So, I want to recontextualize something for you right now. Every session where the private space felt loud and unhelpful, every session where you sat down and the cycling thoughts came and you concluded it was wasted, those sessions were not wasted. They were the sessions where the formation was doing the most honest work it could do. You were creating the conditions for the interior to finally speak. Not failure, fidelity. And here is what returns the agency to you. The sacred stillness does not begin by quieting the cycling. It begins by naming what cycles first. What rises to the surface in the first 60 seconds of the private space is not your obstacle. It is your starting inventory. The noise is not the enemy of the practice. The noise is the first entry in the interior inventory. The weight was always there. The room was simply honest enough to let you see it. The private room has always been the place of the transformation, not the place of the comfortable, the place of the real. And the chosen one who can stay in the private room when the staying is uncomfortable, who can remain present with what comes up rather than going back to the noise of the shared space, that chosen one is the one who exits the private room transformed, who walks out of the solitude carrying what the solitude produced, who brings into the public what the private encounter deposited. You are that chosen one. You stayed. The door is closed. The room is whatever the room is. And what is about to happen in this message is happening to the person who is in the room, not the person who watched from outside, the one who came in, the one who closed the door, the one who stayed. Let me speak to something practical before I go further. Some of you closed the door because the title pulled you. Some of you closed the door because you have been in a season where something in you has been saying, I need something different from what the public spaces are offering. Some of you closed the door because you are in the specific exhaustion of the chosen one who has been carrying too long, who has been in the formation for what feels like too long, who needs to hear something in the private place that will give them the ability to continue into what is next. Whatever brought you into this room, I want you to know that the reason was sufficient. You do not need a more spiritual justification for being here. The fact that you are here is the justification. The draw that brought you in was the invitation. The room is the right room, and you are the right person to be in it right now. Before this message goes any further, I want you to do one thing that declares you are in this room with the full interior present, not the managed version, the real one. The sacred record calls the act of choosing the private space over the ordinary direction, the turning aside. That is what you did to get here. Type "I turned aside" in the comments right now. 4 words for the person who made the same choice Moses made at the burning bush. There is something I want to say about the people who are not in the room, who saw the title and kept scrolling, who felt the pull and resisted it, who needed this message and chose the public space instead. I do not say this to create judgment of them. I say it so that you can receive the full weight of what it means that you are here. The crowd who kept scrolling is not here. The ones who felt too busy or too distracted or too uncomfortable with the private space to close the door are not here. You are here. And the specific population of people who are in this room right now is not the general audience. It is the specific ones, the called ones, the ones whose interior was responsive enough to the invitation to actually accept it. That is a significant thing. Do not undervalue it. The willingness to be here, alone, in the private space, with the door closed, is not ordinary. It is a specific kind of faithfulness. And what God is about to speak into it is proportional to the faithfulness that produced it. I want to address a fear that is present in some of the interiors in this room right now. The fear that what is about to be said is going to ask something of you that you are not currently capable of giving, that the message will build to a demand you cannot meet, that the private space will produce a requirement that will feel impossible in the context of where your life currently is. I want to release that fear right now. What this message is building toward is not a demand. It is a gift, not a gift in the superficial sense of a positive experience. A gift in the deep sense of something being placed in you that was not in you before. Something being revealed to you about yourself and about God, and about the specific season you are in that will change the way you walk out of this room and into what is next. The private space has never been the place of the impossible demand. It has always been the place of the impossible provision. What God brings into the private encounter is not a list of requirements. It is the specific resource that meets the specific need of the specific person who closed the door. And the specific resource that this message is carrying for you is already present in this room. You are already in contact with it. You just have not fully received it yet. We are going to receive it together. Everything in this message, from this point forward, is moving toward that reception. The teaching that is coming, the formation theology that is coming, the specific ancient wisdom and the modern understanding, and the practical tools that are coming. The product of the private encounter that has been held for the chosen one who closes the door. All of it is moving toward a specific moment of reception that is going to happen in this room, in this private space, with the door closed and the real interior present and the audience removed. Stay here. Keep the door closed. What is coming in this message is worth every moment of the staying. There is one more thing I want to do before this first section closes. I want to do something that this message will return to at specific moments as we move through the content. I want to speak directly into your private space, not in a general way, in the specific way that the private encounter has always operated, the way that the burning bush spoke to Moses by name, the way that the angel addressed Elijah specifically, the way that Gabriel spoke to Mary with a greeting that was for her specifically. I do not know your name, but I know the archetype. I know the shape of the interior of the chosen one who closed this door, and I want to speak into that interior right now as specifically as I can speak to someone I cannot see. You have been faithful, not perfectly, not without the interior struggles that no one knows about, not without the seasons of doubt and the seasons of exhaustion and the seasons when the faithfulness felt more like habit than intention, but faithfully, in the way that the formation requires faithfulness, in the long, ordinary way that does not generate applause or confirmation, but that holds the ground day after day, when holding the ground is all that is asked. You have been faithful in that way, and what God wants to say to you in this private space before anything else is said, before the content and the teaching and the revelation unfold, is that He has seen it. Every moment of the faithful, ordinary, and visible holding, He has seen it. Not through a general divine observation that takes in everything at once. He has seen it the way the father of the prodigal saw the son from a great distance, specifically, personally, with the full weight of attention of a God who was watching for this specific person and recognized this specific person before they arrived at the door of the return. He sees you in this room, with the door closed, with the interior that is present in a way it is not present in the shared spaces. He sees the version of you that exists in here, the real one, and what He sees is good. What He sees is not a project in need of repair. What He sees is a formation in progress, a chosen one at a specific stage of a specific journey, being prepared for a specific deployment that the formation is building toward. What He sees in this room is exactly what He intended to see when He drew you into this private space. Stay. The message is just beginning. There may be someone in this room right now who is thinking something specific, something honest, something like this. I have tried the private practice. I sat in the silence. I did what I was told to do. I kept coming back to the room, and the encounter that was promised, the God who speaks in the burning bush, the angel who leaves bread on the coals, did not come. I have been faithful to this, and it has not produced what it was supposed to produce. That is a reasonable thought, and I want to speak directly to it before we go further, because if that thought is in your interior right now, It will block everything else this message is trying to say. What you tried was not wrong, but there is a distinction between what you tried and what the private practice actually is. Most people approach the private space expecting a dramatic encounter on a timeline, and when the encounter does not come on schedule, they conclude the practice failed. But the burning bush was not Moses' first session of solitude. It was the result of 40 years of ordinary faithful desert, 40 years of showing up without the encounter. The encounter was the outcome of the practice, not the substitute for it. What you tried was the right thing, and what you are in right now is not the aftermath of failure. It is the building of the specific interior conditions that make the encounter possible. I want to take you back to a specific moment in the sacred history that I believe is the most important piece of background for the chosen one who is in the private room right now. Not because it is the most famous, not because it is the most dramatic in the obvious sense, because it is the most accurate map of what is happening to you in this specific season. The moment is this. A man is on the far side of the desert, alone, tending the sheep of his father-in-law. He has been in this private situation for 40 years, not 40 days, 40 years. A significant life. A life that from the outside, from the perspective of anyone who knew who this man had been before the desert, would have looked like a decline, like a fall from potential, like someone who had been positioned for greatness and had somehow ended up in the most ordinary possible circumstance, tending sheep in a desert for 4 decades. The man is Moses, and the 40 years in the desert were not a detour from the calling. They were the formation that the calling required. They were the specific preparation for the specific weight that the commission would place on his shoulders. The man who led 2 million people through the wilderness was built for that task in the 40 years of the private wilderness, not in the palace of Pharaoh, in the desert, in the solitude, in the ordinary, invisible, private tending of the sheep of someone else. And then one day, on the far side of the desert, alone, with no audience, with no confirmation that anything significant was about to happen, Moses saw something. A bush on fire. A bush that burned and was not consumed. And Moses did something that I want to pay careful attention to. He did not run. He did not call someone else to verify the sight. He did not wait for permission from the group. He said to himself, I will now turn aside and see this great sight. Those 4 words carry their own name. The turning aside, not the dramatic encounter, not the miraculous appearance. The specific, deliberate act of leaving the ordinary direction long enough to approach the unusual thing. The turning aside is the door of every burning bush moment in the sacred record. And what you did when you closed this door and came into this private space, that was your turning aside. The burning bush appears to the one who makes that specific move. I will now turn aside. That is the phrase I want to rest on for a moment. Moses was already alone. He was already in the private space. But he made an additional choice to turn aside from where he was going, to deviate from the direction of the ordinary, to lean in to what was unusual rather than passing it by. And it was in that turning aside, in that willingness to leave the ordinary path and approach the unusual thing, that the sacred encounter happened. God spoke to Moses from the burning bush, not in the palace, not in the crowd, in the private desert, in the turning aside, in the willingness to approach the unusual thing and see what it held. But what was spoken in that burning bush encounter, the specific word God gave Moses in the private desert, I need you to hear it in the right context. Because what was spoken there is being spoken in this room right now. Hold that. I will bring you to it. But first, stay with what the act of the turning aside itself already means. And what the burning bush held was the commissioning of Moses for the most significant task any single human being carried in the sacred record up to that point. The 40 years of the private desert produced the person who could receive the commissioning. The willingness to turn aside produced the encounter in which the commissioning came. And the specific person God commissioned was the one who was alone, in the private space, tending ordinary things faithfully, and willing to deviate from the ordinary to see what the unusual held. You are in the burning bush moment, not a metaphorical one, an actual one. You closed the door and turned aside from the ordinary to be in this private space. The act of being here, alone, with the door closed, is your turning aside. And the message that is coming to you in this private space is your burning bush, not the consumption of it, the seeing of it, the drawing near to it, the receiving of what it holds. What the burning bush held for Moses was not a comfortable conversation. It was a commission, a specific assignment, a clear word about who Moses was, who God was, what was being asked, and what was being promised. All of it came in the private space. All of it came to the person who was alone and willing to turn aside. Now, I want to take you to a second moment in the sacred history. A different person, a different private space, but the same pattern. A prophet is sitting under a juniper tree. He has just run for his life after one of the most significant spiritual confrontations in the sacred record. He faced 450 prophets on Mount Carmel and won. The fire of God came down in a visible demonstration in front of a crowd. And then he ran, not toward the next assignment, away, into the wilderness, under a tree, asking God to take his life. The man is Elijah, and the moment under the juniper tree is, in my reading of the sacred record, one of the most profound moments of divine pastoral care that the text contains. Because what God did not do in that moment is as significant as what he did. God did not give Elijah a lecture on faith. God did not tell Elijah to get back up and keep going. God did not send a theological correction or a rebuke for the fear or an instruction to perform better. What God did was send an angel who touched Elijah and said, "Arise and eat." And when Elijah looked, there was bread baked on coals and a jar of water. The provision was physical. The touch was physical. The care was embodied, particular, specific to the exhausted physical condition of the person under the tree. Elijah ate and lay back down, and the angel came again, touched him again, arose, and eat, because the journey is too great for you. The second provision was specific to the journey ahead, not just to the immediate exhaustion, to what was coming. The provision of the private space was calibrated to what the future would require, not just to what the present was depleting. And after the provision, after the sleep and the eating and the physical restoration, after the journey to Horeb, there was the still small voice, the specific private word, not in the wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire. After all, of those, in the still small voice that came to the man who was alone in the private space, who had been honest about his exhaustion, who had not pretended to be more than he was in that moment, who had let God see him fully in the worst moment of the formation. The still small voice belongs to the private space. It is not the kind of voice that can be heard in the crowd. It is not the kind of word that lands in the shared space. It requires the closed door. It requires the turned aside. It requires the person who is willing to be in the private place, honest about their state, present with their actual interior rather than the presented version. You are in the position for the still small voice. The crowd is outside. The door is closed. The performance is off. The real interior is present. And the voice that speaks in the private space to the honest chosen one is already speaking. What this message is carrying is a form of that voice. not a replacement for the direct encounter, a vehicle for it, a context in which the still small voice can land in the interior of the one who has closed the door and turned aside to hear it. There is a name for what you have been living in this private season, a word from the ancient sacred language that was given specifically for the person who is in the hidden place and needs to know that the hiding is not absence. Once you hear this word, you will never call the desert season abandonment again. I want to give you a Hebrew word that belongs to this moment. The word is satar. In the Hebrew of the sacred text, satar means to hide, to cover, to conceal, in a protective sense. The same root gives us the word for secret and the word for hiding place. And in the Psalms, the songwriter uses it to describe the specific kind of divine covering that belongs to the private encounter. He says, "You are my hiding place. You cover me with songs of deliverance. You conceal me in the shelter of your presence." I want you to own this word, satar, not just as a Hebrew etymology, as the specific name for the specific season you have been living. The private years that looked like withdrawal were the satar. The formation season that looked like stagnation from the outside was the satar. The desert that felt like abandonment was the satar, the divine concealment placed over a life that was being built for something the public season cannot produce. Once you have satar as your framework, the formation season rewrites itself from failure into preparation. That rewrite is permanent. The satar of God is not the hiding that comes from shame. It is the hiding that comes from protection. The specific kind of divine concealment that covers the chosen one in the formation season, that places them in the private space not as a punishment but as a shelter, that removes them from the public view, not because they are unworthy, but because what is being built in them requires the protected conditions that only the concealment provides. You are not forgotten, you are sheltered, you are not invisible. You are concealed for a specific purpose that only the concealment can build. If you have felt, in the formation season, a sense of being hidden, a sense of being out of the public eye, in a way that felt involuntary, a season of the satar, of the divine concealment, of being placed in the private space when the cultural script said you should be in the public one, I want to name that for what it actually is. It is not abandonment, it is not failure. It is the satar of God over a chosen one who is in the formation that the commission requires. The burning bush appeared to the man who had been in the desert for 40 years of the satar. The still small voice came to the man who was under the juniper tree in the satar of his exhaustion. The private room where you are right now is the specific satar that God has placed you in for the receiving of what this message carries. The satar is no longer unnamed for you. The hidden season has a word now, and the person who has the word for their season is in a different position than the person who does not. Type satar in the comments right now. The one-word declaration of the chosen one who sees the concealment for what it actually is. Type the words "I see it" in the comments right now. This is the second declaration of this message. I see it. I see the private space for what it actually is. I see the satar as shelter rather than abandonment. I see the formation in the desert as preparation rather than waste. I see the closed door not as the end of my access, but as the beginning of the private encounter. I see it. Type, I see it. I want to walk you through a third moment now. A woman at the temple. Her name is Hannah. She is in the worst season of her formation, the season of the unanswered longing, the specific grief of the thing that has been asked for and not yet given. And she is in the temple, alone in the private interior of her prayer, with no audience, with her lips moving, but no sound coming out, with the full weight of the unanswered longing pressing through her in a prayer that was too deep for the words that the shared space would have given her. The priest, Eli, watches her from across the room. From the outside, the private prayer of Hannah looked to him like intoxication. He misread the private depth of her communion as disorder. He assessed the visible signs of the private encounter and got the diagnosis wrong. And it was only when Hannah explained what was actually happening in the interior that Eli received the correction and blessed her. This is one of the most practically significant moments in the sacred record for the chosen one who is in the private space, because it names the specific dynamic that the chosen one in the deep private prayer encounters in the shared world. The depth of the private encounter does not always read correctly from the outside. The things that are happening in the interior, the depth of the communion, the weight of the longing, the specific quality of the private prayer, can be misread by the external observers who are trying to interpret the signs they can see. Hannah was not drunk. She was in the deepest prayer of her life, and the God who saw the interior of the prayer answered it. Not because Eli correctly identified it, not because the shared space validated it, but because the one who receives private prayer does not need the shared space to interpret it first. God received the prayer directly from the interior of Hannah, without the mediation of the priest, without the validation of the crowd, without the correct reading by the external observers. Your private prayers have not required a correct external reading to be received. The things you have brought to God in the interior of your private space, in the closed room, in the still small voice of your own communion, have not needed to be understood by the people around you to be fully received by the one they were addressed to. God has received every prayer you have prayed in the private place, every longing you have brought to him in the silence, every asking that was too deep for the public space to hold, every Hannah prayer, every private turning aside, every satar encounter. He received them. And what Hannah received after the prayer, after the misreading, after the blessing of the priest who finally understood, was the specific thing that the longing had been reaching for. The answer to the specific private prayer was given to the woman who was willing to bring the full weight of the longing into the private space and lay it there without apology and without the need for the shared space to validate the depth of the asking. I want to pause here and create a moment of rest before we go further, because I know that some of you have been in the private space for a long time. Some of you have been in the satar season, in the desert season, in the Hannah season, for a stretch that has tested what you were built to endure. And the weight of the carrying is real. And what I want to offer right now, before the next section of this message, is not more teaching, it is permission. Permission to rest for a moment inside this private space. To not be moving forward or taking in or processing or doing anything with what has been said. To simply be in the room with the door closed and let the specific awareness of the burning bush and the still small voice and the satar and the answered Hannah prayer settle in whatever way they need to settle in you right now. You do not have to perform anything in this moment. You do not have to feel anything specific. You do not have to generate a response. You are in the private room. The performance requirement is off. What is in this room with you, what God has placed in this private space for the person who closed the door, is already here. You are already in contact with it. You can receive it without striving for it. You can let it settle without working for it. You can be in the rest of the private space and let the encounter happen without generating it. Rest here for a moment. The message is not going anywhere. The next section is waiting for you on the other side of the rest. Now, I want to tell you something I heard from a woman who came to me after a message similar to this one. I am not going to tell you her name. I am not going to tell you what city she was in or what her specific circumstances were. What I am going to tell you is what she said, because I believe it is exactly what a significant number of the people in this room right now are experiencing. She said this: I have been a private person my whole life. I do not mean shy. I mean that the most real version of me has always existed in the private space, in the room with the door closed, in the solitude. And I have spent most of my adult life feeling like that was a problem I needed to fix, like I was too internal, too quiet, too much of a person who needed to be alone, more than a healthy person should need to be alone. And what your message gave me was the first time I understood that the private space was not a symptom of something wrong. It was where I was being formed. When she said that last sentence, I heard something shift in the interior of the room. You could almost hear it in the silence after the words, the reframe from symptom to formation, from something wrong to something right. From the private space as a character flaw to the private space as the specific condition under which the formation of this specific kind of chosen one happens. I want to offer you that reframe right now if you have never received it. The degree to which you need the private space, the degree to which the closed door and the solitude and the interior life restore you in a way that the shared spaces cannot. The degree to which the most real version of you exists in the hidden place, that degree is not a symptom, it is a design feature. It is the fingerprint of the specific kind of chosen one who was built for the private encounter, whose formation happens in the satar, whose burning bush is waiting on the far side of the desert of the ordinary. You are that chosen one. The private space is your formation space, and the God who formed you in the private space is the same God who is speaking to you in the private space of this room, right now, with the door closed, to the most real version of you. Now I want to walk deeper into what this means for you practically, for the specific season you are in, for the specific weight you walked in with when you closed this door. Because the sacred history is not information for its own sake. The sacred history is a map for the present moment, and the map I have been reading to you, the Moses map and the Elijah map and the Hannah map, is a map of your life right now. I want to name 3 specific dynamics of the private formation that the sacred history maps, and that I want you to locate yourself within, not in a theoretical way, in the specific way of the person in the room with the door closed who is looking at a map and saying, that is the road I am on. The first dynamic is the dynamic of the extended private season. Moses was in the desert for 40 years, not 40 hours, not 40 days, 40 years of the extended private season. And the extended private season is one of the specific experiences that the chosen one carries that the public world does not understand and cannot fully account for. The world of visibility and metric and timeline and progress measurement does not have a category for the 40 years of tending sheep on the far side of the desert. It does not have a language for the formation that takes decades rather than quarters. It does not have a way to honor the faithfulness of the person who is in year 23 of the private formation and who has not yet arrived at the burning bush. But God does. God has a specific language for it, the language of the prepared, the language of the formed, the language of the burning bush that is waiting on the far side of the extended private season for the person who has been faithful in the ordinary for long enough that the extraordinary can be entrusted to them. If you are in the extended private season right now, if the formation has been going on for longer than you thought it would, if the desert years have accumulated in a way that has tested your confidence that the burning bush is still coming, I want to say this to you plainly. Moses did not know that year 39 of the desert was the last year of the desert. He did not have a countdown. He did not have a schedule. He did not have the confirmation that the extended season was almost over. He was tending sheep on the far side of the desert in year 39, the same way he had been tending sheep in year 1. And the burning bush came not because Moses persevered dramatically or because he finally cracked the spiritual code. It came because the formation was complete, the preparation was finished, and God showed up on the specific day that the specific person who had been prepared in the specific desert was ready to be commissioned. The burning bush comes when the formation is complete, not one day early, not one day late, on the specific day when what the formation built is ready for what the commission requires. You are on that timeline. You are in that desert. And the fact that you are in this private room today, with the door closed, leaning in to what the unusual holds, tells me that you are close. The turning aside is the sign of the person who is near the burning bush. The second dynamic is the dynamic of the provision in the private place. Elijah did not find the bread and the jar of water at the public meeting. He found it under the juniper tree, in the private exhaustion, in the solitude of the person who had nothing left to perform and no audience to perform for. And the provision was specifically calibrated to the state of the person in the private place. The angel knew he was exhausted. The angel knew the journey ahead was too great. The provision was designed for the specific condition and the specific future requirement of the specific person in the specific private space. The provision that God releases in the private place is not generic, it is specific. It is not the provision of the crowd that is calibrated to the average need. It is the provision of the burning bush and the juniper tree, calibrated to the specific exhaustion of the specific person and the specific requirement of the specific journey ahead. I want to say something about that specifically to the chosen one who came into this room carrying a form of exhaustion, not just physical tiredness, the exhaustion of the extended private season, the exhaustion of faithfulness without visible confirmation, the exhaustion of the chosen one who has been tending the sheep for 39 years and who needs something more than the instruction to keep going, who needs the bread on the coals and the jar of water, who needs the provision of the private place, not the exhortation of the crowd. That provision is here. Not in the obvious sense that I can hand you something physical through the screen, in the sense that what this message is carrying and what is in the description and the pinned comment for the specific ones whose exhaustion runs into the neural layer, into the interior noise, into the mind that will not rest even in the private room, has been placed there for you by the one who knew you would be in this room with this specific kind of exhaustion, and who sent you the specific provision that is calibrated to the specific requirement of what is next for you. We will come back to that. For now, the third dynamic. The third dynamic is the dynamic of the misread private prayer. Hannah was in the deepest interior of her private encounter and was read incorrectly by the external observer. And this dynamic, the misreading of the chosen one in the private formation by the people around them, is one of the most consistent and costly experiences of the extended private season. The people around the chosen one in the desert years, the ones who see the externals without access to the interior, will often read the signs incorrectly. They will see the private formation and read it as stagnation. They will see the satar and read it as failure. They will see the turning aside and read it as lack of direction. They will see the years under the juniper tree and read them as depression or withdrawal or the absence of ambition, when actually what is happening in the private space is the most significant interior work of the formation, the deepest root development, the most essential character building, the work that the burning bush will one day commission and that the shared spaces would never have been able to produce. The misreading hurts. I do not want to minimize that. When the people around you see the formation from the outside and read it incorrectly, when they offer well-meaning assessments of the situation based on what they can see that do not account for what is happening in the interior, when they ask questions about when things are going to change or why things are not moving faster, the hurt of being misread is real. The loneliness of carrying something that others cannot see and having others read the signs of the carrying as something it is not, that is one of the specific pains of the private formation. But I want to give you what Eli finally gave Hannah, the blessing of the correct reading, the recognition that what is happening in the private place is not disorder. It is deep prayer. It is not intoxication. It is formation. It is not stagnation. It is the satar of God over a life that is being prepared for something that the ordinary timeline of public progress cannot account for. You are not Eli misread. You are Hannah in prayer. What is happening in your private space is real, and it is deep, and it is producing something that the correct reading of the externals would honor. And the one whose reading of the externals has been incorrect does not have the final word on what is actually happening in your interior. God has the final word, and his reading of your interior is the burning bush, and the still small voice, and the answered prayer of the woman, whose private communion was deeper than any crowd observer could correctly assess. I want to give you another word from the sacred text before we move forward. The Greek word is monos. It means alone. And in the Gospels, the word monos appears consistently in the context of Jesus entering the private space. Before significant events, he withdrew to a solitary place. He sent the crowds away and went up on the mountain alone. He went to the garden and prayed in the specific private interior that is the model of the sacred closed-door encounter. The monos of Jesus was not the solitude of the depleted person who needed to recover from the crowd. It was the intentional withdrawal of the person who knew that what the next public action required could only be received in the private encounter. The monos came before the healing, before the confrontation, before the crossing of the water, before the speaking of the word that changed the situation. The private encounter was the source of the public action. The closed door was the condition for the open door. Your monos, the private space you are in right now, is not the absence of the public action. It is the preparation for it. The closed door is the preparation for the open door. What is being received in this private space is being prepared for deployment in the public spaces that come after this encounter. The formation in the private room is producing the person who will walk out of the room equipped for what the open door requires. Stay in the monos a little longer. The message is still building. What is coming in the next section of this conversation is going to give you 3 specific tools for the private space that the chosen one who closes the door can carry forward from this encounter. Practical tools, spiritually grounded, rooted in the same sacred tradition we have been walking through. Tools that work in the ordinary closed-door moment as much as in the dramatic burning bush encounter. Before we get there, I want to give you the specific gift of this moment, the rest of the one who has been faithful in the extended private season, the satar of God over the specific exhaustion you carried into this room, the still small voice of the private encounter that is already speaking in the silence beneath the content of this message. Receive it, not as information, as encounter. You are in the private space. The door is closed. What is here with you is real, and what is real in this room is more than enough for what this moment requires. I promised you 3 tools, and a tool, in the sense I mean here, is not a technique that works in theory. It is a practice that works in the closed room. Something you can actually do the next time you close the door. Something that makes the private space productive rather than simply solitary. Something that moves you from being alone to being in the specific kind of productive solitude that the burning bush and the still small voice and the answered Hannah prayer require. The first tool is what I call the practice of sacred stillness. This is not the same as trying to quiet the mind. The mind-quieting approach to the private space fails for most chosen ones because it makes the internal noise the adversary rather than the material. The mind, that has been carrying what the formation carries is not going to become still by being instructed to be still. The internal activity that the private space reveals when the external distractions are removed is not a problem to be suppressed. It is data. It is information. It is what the interior has been doing while the performance was on, and the first tool for the productive private space is learning to receive that information rather than resist it. The practice of sacred stillness begins not with quieting, but with noticing. When you close the door and the activity of the external world drops away, you do not try to force the interior into silence. You simply notice what is present. You notice what comes up. The thought that rises first, the feeling that was being held in check by the activity and that now surfaces in the stillness, the longing that was masked by the business and that the private space reveals in its actual shape. You notice it without immediately trying to pray it away or analyze it or manage it. You let it be present. For a moment, you let the contents of the interior be what they are, without performance and without editing and without the covering that the shared space requires. And then, from that place of honest noticing, you begin to speak to God, not with the presented version, with the actual version, with the specific interior that the private space revealed. This is what Hannah did. This is what Elijah did under the juniper tree. This is what Jesus did in the garden. The honest interior was the starting point of the encounter. Practically speaking, this looks like this. You close the door, you take a breath, you sit for 60 seconds without trying to make anything happen. You notice what comes up in the 60 seconds. And you let that thing, whatever it is, be the beginning of the private conversation, not the conclusion of a prepared prayer. The beginning of an honest interior encounter. The burning bush did not require Moses to arrive in a specific spiritual state. It appeared to him in the middle of the ordinary. The still small voice did not require Elijah to be fully recovered and performing well. It came to him in the exhaustion under the tree. The private encounter meets you where you actually are, not where you think you should be. The first tool is simply the practice of showing up in the actual interior rather than the presented one. The second tool is the interior inventory. The interior inventory is a specific practice for the closed-door session that helps the chosen one identify what belongs in the private space and what belongs to be laid down at the door. Because not everything you carry into the private room is yours to carry through it. Some of what the formation asks you to carry in the public seasons needs to be set down in the private space so that what God wants to place there can actually have room to land. The interior inventory has 3 parts. The first part is the identification of what you are carrying that is not yours. This is the weight that has accumulated through the public seasons, the concerns that belong to God, the outcomes that are not in your control, the timelines that belong to God to manage, the people whose situations you have been carrying in the interior as though your carrying would change their outcome. These are real concerns, and they matter. But they are not yours to carry through the private encounter. They belong in the hands of the one who can actually hold them. The first part of the interior inventory is naming them specifically and releasing them to those hands. The second part of the interior inventory is the identification of what you are actually carrying that is yours, the specific longing of the formation season, the specific wound that is present, the specific confusion or question or exhaustion that the private space has revealed when the external noise dropped away. These things do not get set down at the door. These are what you bring into the private encounter. These are the Hannah prayer, the honest interior that God receives and responds to, the actual state of the person in the room. The third part is the identification of what you are receiving, not what you want to receive or what you think should be released, what is actually here in the private space, the specific quality of the presence that is in the room with the door closed, The specific thing that has been landing in the interior as you have been in this message, the specific word or image or awareness that has surfaced in the private encounter that did not come from you. That third part of the interior inventory is the reception practice, the practice of noticing what God is releasing in the private space rather than only noticing what you are bringing. Practically, this looks like this. You close the door. You run the three-part inventory. What am I carrying that is not mine? What am I carrying that is mine? What is being released here that I did not bring? You do this not as a lengthy analysis, but as a brief, honest interior check. It takes 2 to 3 minutes. It can be done in writing or in silence. And what it produces is a cleared space in which the encounter can happen without the weight of the miscarried concerns crowding out the specific thing God wants to place in the private room. The interior inventory is one of the most practical gifts I can give the chosen one who closes the door regularly. It is the specific practice that converts solitude into productive, sacred encounter. That takes the private room from being a space where the ordinary person simply is alone to being a space where the chosen one actively receives what the private encounter holds. The third tool is the private declaration. The private declaration is exactly what it sounds like. It is the practice of speaking aloud in the closed-door space, not the silence of passive prayer. The active voice of the person who is in the private space naming what is true, declaring in the specific place where no audience is present, no performance is required, and no external confirmation is available. What God says about this moment, this season, this person, this situation. The private declaration does the same work in the individual prayer life that the sacred declarations of this message are doing in this collective private space. It activates the interior in a way that the unspoken interior processing does not. It takes what is known in the spirit and makes it real in the spoken word of the private room. It converts the internal awareness into an articulated reality. And, in the tradition of the sacred text, from the creation account, through the prophetic declarations, through the prayer language of the Psalms, the spoken word carries a specific kind of weight that the unspoken word does not carry. The private declaration does not require eloquence. Moses at the burning bush asked God who he was to go. Elijah, under the juniper tree, asked God to take his life. Hannah at the temple had no formal words at all, only the moving of the lips over the longing that was too deep for the language of the public prayer. The private declaration is not measured by its rhetorical quality. It is measured by its honesty, by the degree to which it speaks the actual interior rather than the performed version. Practically, the private declaration looks like this. In your private room, after the sacred stillness and the interior inventory, you speak aloud, in whatever words come, what God is saying over you in this season, not what you hope He is saying. What you actually sense is being said. You declare it in the first person. I am known. I am seen. I am covered. I am equipped. I am the chosen one. In formation. The burning bush is coming. The still small voice is present. The private prayer is received. These are not aspirational, they are positional. They are the declarations of a person who is naming what is actually true from the position of the one who made them, even when the felt sense of the formation season says something different. The private declaration is the practice of the chosen one, who knows the difference between the formation season felt sense and the actual identity that the formation is building, and who chooses to speak the actual identity even when the felt sense has not yet caught up. Type the words I receive in the comments right now. This is the third declaration of this message. I receive what the private space holds. I receive what the burning bush carries. I receive what the still small voice is saying. I receive what the Hannah prayer has been reaching for. I receive what God has placed in this specific closed-door encounter for the specific person I am in this specific moment of the formation. I receive it. Type, I receive. Now, I want to pause on one specific thing that I placed in the description below and the pinned comment for the chosen one, whose private space carries a specific kind of noise that the three tools alone do not fully address. Not the noise of the external world. That noise, the closed door handles, the noise of the interior, the specific kind of overactive neural pattern that the extended formation season can produce, the mind that runs even in the private room, the thoughts that cycle even in the sacred stillness, the interior noise that the interior inventory reveals, but that does not simply stop when the external distractions are removed. For that specific chosen one, the one whose private room is quieter on the outside but louder on the inside, the one who has tried the private space and found that the internal noise crowds out the encounter. I want to say one more thing before we move past this layer of the message. What is in the description is specifically for you. It is not for everyone. It is for the person who recognized themselves in that description. The path to it is there. We will come back to it one more time near the close of this message. For now, simply know that the provision for that specific kind of inner noise exists, and that you are not left without a resource for it. Before I move into the next section of this message, I want to ask you to do something that will take 30 seconds. There is a specific person in your life, someone whose face you can see right now if you let yourself think about them. Who needs to be in this private room? Who needs to close the door and be in the encounter that this message creates? Who is in the formation season and does not have the language for it yet? Who has been in the satar and has been reading it as abandonment? Who has been under the juniper tree and does not know that the bread and the jar of water are the specific provision of the private encounter? I want you to send this video to them right now, not after you finish watching, right now. Take 30 seconds and send it to the person whose face came to mind. The act of sending is the act of the chosen one who has received something in the private space and knows that the reception belongs to the specific person who has not yet closed the door. You are the vehicle for the burning bush moment of the person you are thinking of. Send it. Let them close the door. Now, I want to lead you through a specific 4-step guided mental activation before we move into the next layer of this message. This is not meditation in the secular sense. It is a specific practice of the chosen one in the private space that activates the interior around what has been received in the encounter. The first step of the activation is to create the image. I want you to see yourself in a room. The door is closed. The external world is on the other side of the door. In this room, there is nothing you are required to perform, nothing you are managing, nothing you are presenting. You are the most real version of you in a room where the most real version of you is completely safe to exist. Take 15 seconds and let that room be real in the interior. The second step is to place God in the room with you, not as an abstraction, as a presence that is specifically here, in this specific room, not watching from a distance, present, at the level of the encounter, the Moses level, the Elijah level, the level of the still small voice that comes to the specific person in the specific private place. Let the presence be real in the interior. Let it be the burning bush that is already burning, the provision that is already on the coals, the word that is already forming in the silence. The third step is to receive the specific thing that the presence of God in the closed room releases over you. Not what you think should be released, what is actually here. The specific quality of the word or the peace or the awareness or the knowing that is present in this private encounter. Let it land in the interior. Do not analyze it. Do not qualify it. Let it be what it is. Let it land where it lands. The fourth step is to anchor it. in a specific physical sensation, a breath, a warmth, a settling, a loosening of something that was held, a sense of something beginning that was waiting. Whatever the specific physical register of the landing is for you, let it be the anchor. Let the body remember what the interior received in this private room, so that the next time you close the door, the body carries the memory of what is available in here. And the closing of the door becomes easier, and the turning aside becomes more natural, and the burning bush encounter becomes not the exception of the spiritual life, but the regular practice of the chosen one who knows what the private room holds. The room is here, the door is closed, the most real version of you is present, and what God has placed in this private space for you is real. Receive it, let it land, let the anchor set. The 4 steps of that activation are now in your interior. The sacred stillness, the interior inventory, the private declaration, the activation. These are the tools of the chosen one who closes the door with intention. Type the private room in the comments right now. The declaration of the chosen one who is no longer just in a room, but in a sacred encounter with everything the private space holds. There is a dimension of the private space that I have not yet named in this message, and that I want to address specifically now. The dimension of the private space that is not the encounter, but the maintenance. The practice of returning. The ongoing discipline of the chosen one who does not close the door once and receive everything they need for the rest of the formation and then never need the private space again. The discipline of the person who closes the door regularly, who returns to the burning bush not as the dramatic exception, but as the ongoing practice, who makes the monos not an emergency measure, but a daily design feature. The chosen one who has built the private space into the regular rhythm of the day is a fundamentally different person than the one who visits the private space only in the crisis. Not because one is more spiritual than the other, because the regular practice of the closed door builds a specific quality of interior life that the emergency visit cannot. The regular sacred stillness builds the capacity to notice quickly. The regular interior inventory builds the clarity to distinguish what is yours from what is not. The regular private declaration builds the fluency of speaking identity language in the interior so that when the formation gets heavy, the declarations are not strange. They are home. I want to speak specifically to the chosen one who has tried to maintain the regular private practice and who has found it difficult, whose day fills up before the door gets closed, whose intention to have the morning private time gets displaced by the demands of the ordinary, whose private space has become irregular not from lack of desire, but from the specific texture of a life that has a lot of obligation in it. I want to say 2 things to that person. The first is that the duration of the private encounter is less important than its regularity. Moses encountered God in the burning bush in a moment. The moment did not take 40 years to happen. It happened in the turning aside, in the willingness to deviate from the ordinary direction for the length of time it took to approach the unusual thing and see what it held. The private encounter can be a long, sustained season of prayer. It can also be the 2 minutes of the sacred stillness before the day begins, the interior inventory in the car before you walk into the building, the private declarations spoken aloud in the room before the day fills the room. What matters is that the door gets closed, even briefly, and the turning aside happens, even in a small form, consistently. The second thing I want to say is that the resistance to the regular private practice is itself information. When the private space is consistently displaced by the ordinary, it is worth noticing what specifically is doing the displacing, because the displacement is not always simply busyness. It is sometimes the specific protection pattern of the chosen one who learned somewhere in the formation that the private space is where the grief comes up, where the confusion surfaces, where the things that were being held in check by the activity reveal themselves, and the activity becomes the management strategy for not being in the private space where the difficult things are. If that is what has been happening, if the business has been the specific protection against the private space rather than simply an obstacle to it, I want to name that now, not with judgment, with recognition. The avoidance of the private space is one of the most common patterns in the late formation, precisely because the private space is where the most significant interior work is available to happen. The protection against it is proportional to how much is there to be met, and what is being protected against is not a problem. It is the specific material that the sacred stillness and the interior inventory and the private declaration are designed to meet and transform and release. The private space is safe. Whatever comes up in the stillness, whatever surfaces in the inventory, whatever the speaking of the declarations activates in the interior, it is safe. Not in the sense that it will not be uncomfortable, in the sense that the one who is in the room with you when the door is closed has already seen all of it, has already met the most difficult version of it, has already been in the private space of your most honest interior, and has not withdrawn from it. You are not going to find something in the closed-door encounter that is beyond what that presence can hold. You are not going to surface something that ends the encounter. What surfaces in the private space surfaces into the specific care of the one who sent you there. Now I want to come back to something I planted earlier in this message. The mention of what is in the description and the pinned comment for the chosen one, whose private space is loud in the interior. Who closes the door and removes the external noise, but finds the internal noise unchanged? Who has tried the sacred stillness and found that the thoughts keep cycling? Who runs the interior inventory and finds that the contents of the interior are not simply waiting to be named and released, but that they are generating more contents faster than the naming can keep up with? This is a specific experience. It is not the ordinary difficulty of the beginner who has not yet built the practice. It is the specific neural pattern of the person whose formation has asked the interior to carry at a level that has left its mark on the literal neurology. The mind that has been in the formation carrying mode for an extended period develops specific patterns of interior activity that do not simply stop when the external conditions change. The thoughts cycle because the formation trained the neural architecture to monitor, to assess, to anticipate, to process at a rate that does not downshift automatically when the room goes quiet. For that specific pattern, what a neurologist who has spent years working with the cognitive signature of the extended stress interior documented is the role of the whole brain state in breaking the cycle, not through force, not through suppression, through a specific quality of neural synchronization that is the neurological correlate of the still small voice, the specific brain state that the ancient sacred practices were producing in the people who practiced them, now understood in the language of the science that did not have the words for it yet in the time of Moses and Elijah. We will come to the full description of what is in the description when we arrive at the specific moment in this message that it belongs to. For now, I want you to know that if you recognized yourself in that description, the resource exists. The provision has been placed there. The angel has already put the bread on the coals. It is there for when you arise to eat. I want to add one more element to this section before we move forward. A specific teaching about the fruit of the private space. Because the private encounter is not only about receiving, it is about what is produced by the receiving that then goes into the public spaces. And I want to name what the regular private practice produces that you carry into the shared world. The first fruit is discernment. The chosen one who is regularly in the private space develops a specific quality of perception that the chosen one who is always in the crowd does not develop at the same level. The capacity to sense what is underneath the surface of a situation, to feel the direction of what is actually happening before it becomes fully visible, to know, in the interior, something about a person or a context that the externals alone do not reveal. This is the fruit of the regular private encounter. The burning bush practice produces the burning bush perception. The person who is regularly in the private space with the one who sees the unseen develops the capacity to see the unseen. The second fruit is resilience. Not the resilience of the person who is strong because they have never been deeply shaken. The resilience of the person who has been in the private space when the shaking happened and who found, in the closed room, that the one who is in the room with the door closed is the one whose presence is sufficient for the shaking. The chosen one who has been in the private room during the hardest seasons of the formation carries a specific quality of unshakability that comes not from the absence of the shaking, but from the repeated experience of the presence that is more than sufficient for it. The third fruit is authority. Not the authority of the position, or the title, or the platform. The authority of the person who speaks from the private encounter, who carries what the closed door produces into the open space, who speaks the word that was received in the private place with the specific weight of the person who was actually there. The prophetic voice in the sacred record consistently belongs to the people who were first in the private space. Isaiah in the vision, Jeremiah in the specific interior encounter that became his commission, John on the island of Patmos. The authority of the word is proportional to the depth of the private encounter from which it comes. You are developing that authority in the private space right now. What is being received in this closed-door encounter is going to be carried into the public spaces of your life. The word you speak from this private place will carry the weight of what was received here. The discernment you bring to the relationships and situations you return to after this encounter will carry the refinement of the closed-door meeting. The resilience you walk back through the open door with will be the resilience that was built in the private room. The door does not stay closed forever. The private space is the preparation for the public one. Moses left the burning bush with the commission. Elijah rose from the juniper tree with the provision and walked to the mountain. Hannah left the temple with the answered prayer in her interior before it was in her hands. The fruit of the private encounter is always meant for the public world. You bring it with you when you open the door. And what you are about to bring out of this private room, what you are receiving in this encounter right now, is real. It is specific to you. It is calibrated to the specific requirement of the next season. And it will be recognizable when you step back into the public spaces, not immediately and not obviously, but in the specific quality of how you show up in those spaces, in what you see that others do not see, in how you stand in what others cannot stand in the word that comes out of you in the specific moment when the public situation needs the private encounter to speak into it. There is a second experience I want to name before we go further, one that is closely connected to the fruit of discernment I just described, but that has been misread so consistently in the life of the chosen one that I want to address it directly. Here is the experience. You are in a conversation with someone you know well, a regular conversation, and something in you drops below the surface of what is being said, not distraction, something deeper. You hear what the person is saying and you are simultaneously aware of something underneath it that they are not talking about, a pain they are managing, a fear that is driving a specific decision, a connection between this moment and something larger that they have not yet seen. And you cannot say any of it because the shared space is not built to hold that level of perception. So you surface, you respond to the ordinary layer, and you carry the deeper seeing privately, as you always have. And that experience has been diagnosed for you in various ways. You are too analytical, You are reading too much into things. You are projecting. You are too sensitive. The diagnosis is always some version of, there is too much happening in your interior and you need to moderate it. But the mechanism is not excess, it is design. I want to give this pattern a name. The depth differential. The depth differential is the gap between the interior depth you were built to operate at and the surface level of what most ordinary conversations can hold. It is not a flaw in your perception. It is the fingerprint of the specific chosen one who was formed in the private encounter. Moses came out of 40 years of desert formation and saw a burning bush that everyone else had walked past for 40 years of their own. Not because he was hyper-vigilant. Because the formation had built a specific quality of perception that the ordinary formation does not produce. You have been built with the same quality. The private formation is the training ground for seeing at the depth that others are not yet calibrated to see. So the experiences of feeling too internal, of perceiving beneath the surface when others see only the surface, of carrying the deeper perception without being able to share it in the ordinary spaces, those were not symptoms of being too much. They were evidence of the formation functioning correctly, not failing to connect at the surface level, exceeding it. The person you are designed to serve is not the person who needs you at the surface. It is the person who needs someone who can see beneath it. The depth is not a liability. It is the specific gift the private formation has been building for its moment of deployment. Not too deep, built for depth. I want to shift the frame for a moment, not away from what we have been walking through, deeper into it. Because everything we have discussed, the burning bush and the juniper tree, and the satar, and the monos, and the three tools of the private space, has been moving toward a specific question. A question that I think is sitting in the interior of a significant number of the people in this room right now. A question that the formation season tends to generate in the specific chosen one who has been trying to access the private space and who keeps running into the same obstacle. The question is this: what do I do when the private room is not quiet? What do I do when I close the door and the stillness I am seeking is not in the room? When the interior is louder than the exterior was? When the thoughts cycle instead of settling? When the sacred stillness practice reveals not a quiet interior waiting for the encounter, but a running interior that does not seem to know how to stop? This is not a spiritual failure. I want to be very clear about that. The chosen one, who closes the door and finds the interior loud, is not a chosen one who is doing the private practice wrong. They are a chosen one who has a specific interior architecture that was shaped by the formation in a way that requires something beyond the practice alone to address. Here is what I mean. The formation that the extended chosen one season requires of the interior is significant. The years of the carrying, the weight of the invisible holding, the sustained vigilance of the person who has been in the long private season with a lot of unresolved in the interior, these things leave a specific mark on the literal neural architecture. The mind that has been in the carrying mode for an extended period develops specific patterns of interior activity, specific neural loops that were adaptive when the carrying required sustained attention, and that do not simply switch off when the context changes. The brain that was shaped by the extended formation is not broken. It is running the specific patterns that it was built to run during the season it was built to run them in. The problem is that those patterns, adaptive in the formation, become a specific kind of obstacle in the private space. The monitoring and the processing and the anticipation that were necessary functions in the carrying season are the exact functions that make the interior loud when the external noise drops away. The scientific language for what is happening in that interior belongs to a discovery that changed how neuroscience understands the relationship between the two hemispheres of the brain. The discovery was made in 1981 by a researcher named Dr. Roger Sperry at Caltech, who was awarded the Nobel Prize in Physiology for the work. What Dr. Sperry documented was that the left and right hemispheres of the human brain are not simply symmetric. They operate in fundamentally different modes, and for most people, and particularly for people whose interior has been shaped by the extended carrying of the formation, the hemispheres are operating in what researchers call a decoupled state, each hemisphere running its own patterns without the full coordination of the other. When Dr. Sperry tested children, he found that the vast majority, around 98 out of 100, showed spontaneous whole brain activity. The hemispheres coordinating naturally, the left and the right working together in a synchronized state. The same state that the sacred traditions were describing when they used language like peace that passes understanding and the quieting of the interior that happens in the presence of the one who is greater than the storm. When he tested adults, the number who showed the same spontaneous coordination had dropped dramatically, fewer than 1 in 1,000, not because adults had lost the capacity, because the specific demands of adult life, the carrying, the managing, the sustained cognitive effort of navigating complexity, had shifted the neural architecture away from the coordinated state toward the decoupled state. The carrying produces the loud interior, and the loud interior is not a character flaw. It is a neural pattern, and a neural pattern can be addressed. I want to give this pattern a name before I describe what addresses it, because naming it is part of returning the agency that the pattern has been silently taking away. The formation imprint. The formation imprint is the specific neural signature left by the extended chosen one season, not the result of failure, not the result of spiritual inadequacy. The result of carrying faithfully in a formation that required the interior to operate at a sustained level of vigilance, processing, and awareness over an extended period. Every session of the private practice that produced partial stillness, but not the full encounter, every interior inventory that named the contents without fully releasing them, every private declaration that landed in the accessible interior, but not in the deepest layer, was not failure of the practice. It was the practice doing what it could at the level of the neural architecture it had access to. The limitation was never your intention. The limitation was the ceiling that the formation built. Which means the years of trying and the years of partial encounter and the years of the loud interior in the private room were not years of wasted practice. They were years of faithful formation-level effort, meeting a formation-level pattern that required something more specific than effort alone. The private practice sessions that frustrated you the most were the sessions where the formation imprint was most present. They were the evidence of the formation being most active, not the evidence of the practice failing, not spiritual inadequacy. Formation, faithfulness, meeting a formation ceiling. And the formation imprint that the formation built, that ceiling, is addressable. The agency returns here, what the practice could not dissolve on its own, because it was working above the level of the pattern. The specific provision for the pattern can address at the level where the pattern lives. A neurologist named Dr. Daniel Barone, working out of New York City, spent years researching the specific conditions under which the adult brain could return to the whole brain coordinated state, not through meditation techniques alone, which for many people do not produce the state because the specific neural pattern of the decoupled brain makes the technique difficult to sustain, and not through pharmaceutical interventions, which can shift the chemistry but do not address the underlying coordination pattern, but through a specific combination of natural compounds that target the specific neural mechanism by which the two hemispheres re-enter their coordinated state. What the team of Dr. Barone documented was that the whole brain state, when produced through this specific mechanism, changes the experience of the private space in a way that is qualitatively different from what most people know as relaxation. It is not the absence of thought. It is the quality of a thought process that is no longer running in the loud loop. The interior that had been cycling in the decoupled pattern begins in the whole brain state to operate with the quality of the still small voice rather than the quality of the storm. I want to tell you about two people who found the whole brain state through what the research produced. The first is a woman from California. She had been in the private practice for years. She closed the door regularly. She did the work. She prayed. She had the entire vocabulary of the spiritual life and the genuine desire for the encounter. And for years, the interior of the private space for her was loud. The thoughts cycled. The peace that she knew was supposed to be available in the encounter was something she read about and believed in and did not consistently experience. She tried the supplement that the research of Dr. Barone produced, and she told me this. She said, "I had my first genuinely quiet private time in years, not because the thoughts were gone, because they had stopped cycling. The interior was what I always knew it was supposed to be, quiet enough to hear what was in the room." The second is a man from Texas. He came to the private practice not from a background of spiritual discipline, but from the specific exhaustion of the chosen one formation. He had been in the carrying season for what felt like too long. He closed the door, not as a regular practice, but as an emergency measure, the way Elijah ended up under the juniper tree, not by design, by necessity. And when he closed the door, he found the interior loud and the encounter elusive. He tried the supplement, and he said this. He said, "The private space is different now. It is the first thing I do in the morning, not because I am disciplined, because I actually want to be there. It is no longer the place where I go to try to quiet what will not quiet. It is the place where I go because the quieting actually happens." What is available in the description and the pinned comment below is what both of those people found, not a spiritual technique, a specific natural support for the neural architecture that the extended formation shaped. Something that makes the three tools of the private space actually work for the person whose interior has been loud, not from lack of desire, but from the specific neural pattern that the carrying produced. There may be someone in this room right now whose interior is saying something specific. It sounds like this: "I hear what you are describing, but something in me is telling me that what is in the description is for the chosen ones who are further along, who have more clarity, who have already arrived at the private encounter and just need support, not for someone who is still as much in the noise as I am." That thought is a reasonable thought, and it is also the specific thought that the pattern of the unworthy produces in the person who needs this most. The provision of the private encounter is not calibrated to spiritual merit. It is calibrated to specific need. The bread on the coals appeared to Elijah not when he was at his strongest, when he was at his most depleted, under the juniper tree, asking God to take his life. The angel did not wait for Elijah to be in a better spiritual state before placing the provision. The provision was placed for the specific state of depletion he was actually in. If the interior noise I described has been creating the ceiling on your private encounter, the specific provision for that pattern was placed in the description for you, not for the stronger version you hope to become. For you, right now, in the specific interior state you actually have. Before I name what is in the description, I want to speak clearly about what you now understand that you did not understand when you entered this private room. Here is what you now know. The private space works correctly even when it feels loud. The surfacing of the interior contents when the external noise drops is the practice functioning, not failing. The carrying that the formation required built a specific neural pattern called the formation imprint. That imprint is not a permanent sealing. It is addressable at the level of the neural architecture it lives in. What this means practically, the path to the deeper private encounter for the person with the formation imprint is not more discipline. It is the three tools: sacred stillness, interior inventory, private declaration, supported by the specific neural provision that addresses the pattern underneath the practice. The combination produces what the practice alone could not reach in the formation-shaped interior. The whole brain coordinated state in which the private encounter happens at the depth the sacred record describes. Who this is specifically for? The chosen one who closed this door because the private space has been calling them, and the interior noise has been answering instead. The person who has the vocabulary and the genuine desire and the specific obstacle that the vocabulary and desire alone cannot dissolve. That is the person the angel left the bread on the coals for. That is the person this resource was placed in the description for. They call it the genius switch. The name comes from the specific mechanism that the research documented: the switching of the brain from the decoupled formation pattern to the whole brain coordinated state, the state that Dr. Sperry found in 98% of children and fewer than 1 in 1,000 adults. The state that the sacred practitioners of every tradition have been describing for thousands of years without the neurological vocabulary. The state of the still small voice. The state of the burning bush encounter. The state in which the private space is what it was designed to be. The genius switch is not a relaxation supplement. It is not caffeine and it is not a sedative. It is a specific formulation that works at the level of the neural coordination mechanism. And because it works at that level, the experience of it is not the blunted edge of a chemical intervention. It is the sharpened clarity of a brain operating in its most coordinated state. The private space becomes more accessible. The sacred stillness becomes more genuine. The interior inventory becomes clearer. The private declaration carries more weight in the interior because the interior is present in a different way. The genius switch is not for everyone in this room. It is for the specific chosen one who recognize themselves in the description of the loud interior. The one who has been trying to access the private space and finding the access blocked by the neural pattern of the extended formation. The one who wants the burning bush encounter and who needs the specific neural support that makes the turning aside actually productive rather than simply frustrating. For everyone else, the three tools are what I leave you with, and they are sufficient for the chosen one whose interior, while not always quiet, does not have the specific pattern of the formation-shaped loudness. For the ones in the loud interior, the genius switch is what is in the description. The path to it is in the pinned comment. The price was $500 when the research team first released it to the medical community. A first public release brought it to $49, and what is available right now through the link in the description is $39, with 4 additional resources that were not part of the original release. And the full satisfaction guarantee means that if the interior is not different in the way I described, the $39 comes back. There are counterfeits. I want to say that directly. Because the research that produced the genius switch has been visible enough that other products have been developed to appear similar, and the mechanism of action is specific enough that the wrong formulation will not produce the whole brain state. It will produce something that resembles relaxation, which is not the same thing. The specific formulation that was built from the research of Dr. Barone is what is in the description. Not a category of similar products, the specific one for the person in the room whose interior knows in this moment that what I just described is for them. The link is there. The door is open. The angel has put the bread on the coals. What I am doing now is pointing to the provision that is already there and saying to the person who needs it, arise and eat. The journey ahead requires it. I want to move now from the provision in the private space to the specific identity of the chosen one who has been in the private formation, because the formation does not only produce a need, it produces a person, and the specific person that the private formation produces is the chosen one, who carries specific archetypal markers that belong to the nature of the private work. For the chosen one who has spent significant time in the satar, in the monos, in the private encounter, the formation has produced something in the interior that could not have been produced in the public seasons, something that the formation in the private place uniquely generates, a quality of interior life that belongs to the person who has been repeatedly in the room with the door closed, in honest communion with the one who is present in the closed door encounter. That quality is what I want to name now, not as theology, as a description of who you have become in the private formation. The person in this room right now is not the person who first started closing the door. The person who first began the practice of the private space, or who was placed in the satar of the divine concealment, was at the beginning of a process that has been producing something specific. And I want to name what it has produced. It has produced depth, the specific kind of interior depth that cannot be performed and cannot be faked. The depth of the person who has been in the real encounter repeatedly, who has brought the honest interior to the private space again and again rather than the presented version, who has run the interior inventory long enough that the inventory reveals things quickly and accurately, who has practiced the private declaration long enough that the voice of the identity is not strange in the interior. This is not a shallow depth, it is the depth that the sacred history honors in the people it records. Moses, Eliah, Hannah. The depth of the person who has been in the private place long enough that the private place has become their most natural habitat. The depth that the private formation produces is not only interior, it manifests in specific qualities that the public spaces eventually come to recognize, even if they do not always recognize the source. The quality of presence that belongs to the person who has been in the private encounter is recognizable, the stillness in the midst of the situation that is generating noise for everyone else, the seeing that extends beneath the surface of the visible, the word that comes from a different place than the words the public spaces produce. These are the fruits of the private formation, the output of the closed door, the public evidence of the private encounter. And the chosen one who has been in the private formation is often surprised when the public spaces begin to recognize these qualities. Because from the inside, the private formation does not feel like the production of remarkable qualities. It feels like the ordinary faithfulness of closing the door again, running the inventory again, speaking the declarations again, being in the encounter again. The ordinary repeated practice of the closed-door session does not feel from the inside like the development of depth. It feels like showing up, but the showing up is exactly what the depth requires, and the depth is exactly what the public spaces eventually come to need from the chosen one who has it. I want to speak now into the specific obstacle patterns that I have not yet named in this message. The obstacles that the chosen one in the private formation encounters not in the exterior, but in the interior. The resistance points, the specific formations of the interior that work against the productive private encounter, even for the chosen one who has been faithfully closing the door. But there is a specific danger in the private formation that I need to name before we go further. A specific interior trap that waits for the chosen one who has been faithfully in the closed-door encounter for extended seasons. It may already be operating in your interior right now, and if it is, it has been quietly costing you more ground than you are aware of. The first obstacle is what I call the performance carryover. The chosen one, who has spent significant time in the public spaces, in the shared spaces, in the environments that reward presentation and performance, carries the performance impulse into the private space. And in the private space, the performance impulse looks like this: the prayer that is still shaped for an audience even when the audience is gone. The declaration that sounds like the right thing to say rather than the actual interior truth. The sacred stillness that is performed as spiritual discipline rather than entered as genuine encounter. The person is alone in the room but still performing, still managing, still presenting. For an internal observer, that is the accumulated expectation of all the external audiences they have spent their formation years performing for. The performance carryover is addressed by the same practice I described earlier. The sacred stillness as noticing rather than forcing. The interior inventory as honest assessment rather than spiritual checklist. The private declaration as actual interior truth rather than aspirational statement. The path through the performance carryover is the same as the path through it in the shared spaces. Honesty, the specific courage of the Hannah prayer, the prayer that does not look right from the outside and does not sound right from the public perspective, and that is received completely by the one who receives honest prayer, regardless of its form. The second obstacle is what I call the unworthiness pattern. The specific interior belief, often unexamined, that the private encounter is available to other chosen ones, but not to this one. That the burning bush appears for the prepared and the worthy, and that this specific person is in a different category. Too much history. Too much that the formation has revealed about the interior that disqualifies. Too much of the honest inventory that makes the private space feel like a record of inadequacy rather than a space of encounter. The unworthiness pattern is the lie that the formation feels like truth, because the formation, in its honest revealing of the interior, does reveal inadequacy. It reveals the places where the formation seasoned self falls short of the calling seasoned self. It reveals the wound and the pattern and the limit and the history that the public presentation covers. And the honest interior is not always a comfortable thing to be in the presence of. But the presence of God in the private space is not disturbed by the honest inventory. The burning bush appeared to the man who had fled Egypt under specific circumstances that do not reflect the resume of the fully qualified. The still small voice came to the man who was asking God to take his life. The answered prayer came to the woman who was misread as intoxicated by the priest. The ones who received the private encounter in the sacred history were not the ones who had cleared the record. They were the ones who showed up in the private space with the honest interior. The private encounter does not require the cleared record. It requires the honest presence. And the honest presence is exactly what the sacred stillness creates, and the interior inventory names, and the private declaration speaks from. You are sufficient for the private encounter, not because you have the cleared record, because you have the honest presence, because you closed the door, because you turned aside, because you are in the room. The third obstacle is the waiting pattern. The specific interior structure of the chosen one, who has been in the extended formation season where the primary mode has been waiting. Waiting for the word, waiting for the direction, waiting for the confirmation, waiting for the outcome, and who has developed, in the long season of the waiting, a specific quality of interior stillness that is actually suspension rather than rest. The holding of the interior in a specific state of not yet. The putting off of the full engagement because the thing being waited for has not yet arrived. The waiting pattern, when it carries into the private space, produces a specific quality of the encounter that is not fully receptive, Not because the chosen one does not want to receive, because the interior has been trained, in the extended waiting, to defer reception until the specific thing being waited for has arrived. To not fully land in what is available in the present moment because the present moment is not the thing being waited for. The antidote to the waiting pattern in the private space is exactly what I want to speak into now. It is the practice of receiving what is available in this moment as complete in itself, not as the preparation for the thing being waited for, as complete, as sufficient, as the full provision of this specific private encounter for this specific person in this specific moment. The burning bush was not a preparatory event for something more significant. It was the event. The still, small voice was not a placeholder until the more dramatic moment. It was the word. What is in the private room right now is not the waiting room for the encounter. It is the encounter. Receive it as the encounter. Let this moment in the private space, this specific session, this specific message in this specific closed room, be received as complete, not as a step towards something else, as the thing itself. The provision of the private encounter that is calibrated exactly to what this specific person needs in this specific moment of the formation, and the next time you close the door, do the same. Let the encounter be complete in itself. Let the sacred stillness be sufficient in itself. Let the interior inventory be the full work of that session. Let the private declaration be the complete act of that moment. Each closed-door session is not a lesser version of the burning bush waiting to become the real one. Each closed-door session is its own burning bush, its own still small voice, its own Hannah prayer received. Now, I want to come back to one thing about what is in the description before we move forward. I want to speak directly to the person who felt a specific recognition in the interior when I described the loud interior, the neural pattern of the extended formation, the whole brain state that the research of Dr. Sperry documented and that the formulation of Dr. Barone makes accessible. If you felt that recognition, if you heard the description, and something in the interior said, "That is my private space, that is what I have been experiencing when I close the door," I want to say this to you. The recognition is the leading. The interior knows, and what you recognized in the description is what is available in the link in the description. The path is there. The provision is there. You do not need to continue the private practice in the loud interior when the specific natural support for the neural pattern exists. There is something I want to add to what I just said about the identity that the private formation produces. I want to go deeper into the specific interior qualities that the closed-door formation builds, because the listing of the 3 fruits was the beginning of what I want to say, not the full version of it. The private formation does not only produce depth and discernment and resilience and authority. It produces something I want to name specifically because it is the thing that most directly changes how the chosen one moves through the public world after the private encounter. It produces a different relationship with silence. The chosen one, who has not been through the private formation, relates to silence as an absence, as the gap between stimulations, as the space that gets filled. The natural response to silence in the person who has not built the private practice is to fill it with noise, with activity, with the things that the culture provides to ensure that the gap does not remain a gap. The chosen one, who has been through the private formation, who has been in the satar, the divine concealment, the desert season of the closed door, has developed a different relationship with silence. For them, silence is not an absence, it is a presence. The specific quality of the private encounter has converted the neutral emptiness of silence into the charged space of the potential encounter. They do not fill the silence because the silence has become the medium in which the still, small voice moves. The silence has become the satar, the shelter, the hiding place where the encounter happens. This different relationship with silence is one of the most powerful things the private formation gives the chosen one to carry into the public world. Because the person who can be in the silence without the compulsion to fill it is the person who can hear what is happening beneath the surface of a situation, who can be in the room where everyone else is talking and notice what is not being said, who can receive the interior knowing that the still small voice carries when the crowd is too loud to hear it. The chosen one who has been in the private formation and who has developed the charged relationship with silence carries a specific gift into every room they enter after the private encounter. The gift of being able to hear what is not being said. The gift of not having to fill the space immediately. The gift of being comfortable in the silence that makes others uncomfortable, and of knowing what to do with what comes in the silence when others cannot sit still long enough to receive it. That gift was built in the private room, in the repeated practice of the closed door, in the sacred stillness that was not always comfortable at the beginning, and that has become, over the years and the sessions and the repeated turnings aside, the most natural space the chosen one knows. The silence has become home. And the person who is home in the silence carries something that no amount of public activity can produce in the same way. There is one more dimension of the private formation identity that I want to name before we move into the next phase of this message. It is the dimension of the commissioned private word. The specific thing that the private encounter deposits in the chosen one that is meant to be spoken into the public world. The burning bush did not end with Moses sitting in the private space basking in the encounter forever. The commission came, the word came, the specific direction came, and Moses left the burning bush with something in him that was not in him when he approached it. A word for Pharaoh, a word for the people. A specific private revelation that would become, when spoken in the public space, at the specific kairos moment, the word that changed. The private encounter is always moving toward a commissioned word, not on a schedule that the chosen one controls, on the kairos schedule that the one who commissions in the private place determines. The word that comes in the private space is being held in the chosen one for the specific public moment when it is required. And the private formation is the process by which the chosen one is built to carry the word from the private reception to the public speaking without dropping it, without distorting it, without the performance covering, replacing the honest private encounter that produced it. You are being built to carry a specific word, not in the sense of a dramatic public proclamation, though it may include that. In the sense that what is being received in the private encounters of your formation is being held in you for the specific moment when the public situation needs exactly what the private encounter produced. You are the carrier. The private room is where the carrying happens, and the word you are carrying has a specific moment when it will be spoken and received in a way that changes things. The formation is building you for that moment. The private practice is the training for that carrying. And the you who has been faithful in the private space, who has been in the closed-door encounter over and over, who has developed the relationship with the silence and the depth of the inventory and the voice of the declaration, is the you who will carry the word to the public moment with the specific quality that only the private formation can produce. That is the identity I want you to hold as we move into the next layer of this message. You are the carrier of the commissioned word, built in the private space, held for the public moment, equipped in the closed-door encounter for the open-door deployment. The private formation is not a detour from the purpose. It is the preparation for it. You are in the right place. The door is still closed, and the formation is still working. I want to name now the specific archetypes that the private formation produces. not the general chosen one archetypes that belong to any formation season. The specific ones that belong to the chosen one who has been built in the closed-door encounter. The ones whose formation happened primarily in the satar, in the monos, in the private space. The first archetype is the hidden one. The hidden one is the chosen one whose calling has been built in the concealed place, not hidden because of shame, hidden because of the specific nature of what is being built. The way that what is formed underground is not visible on the surface, but is doing the most essential structural work. The hidden one has often been described by others who see the exterior without access to the interior as someone who is not yet fulfilling their potential, who has not arrived, who is still waiting for the breakthrough that would make the public world aware of them. But the hidden one is not waiting for the breakthrough. The hidden one is building it, in the closed-door encounter, in the private formation. In the repeated practice of the sacred stillness and the interior inventory and the private declaration that is deepening the root system, building the interior architecture, developing the quality of presence and discernment and resilience and authority that the public world will eventually encounter and recognize as something it cannot fully account for. The hidden one emerges from the private formation, carrying what no public training can produce: the depth of the repeated, honest encounter, the discernment of the person who has been in the private space with the one who sees beneath the surface, the resilience of the person who has been in the closed-door season when the internal noise was loudest and who found, in that season, that the presence in the private room is greater than the noise. The hidden one is being built. The hiddenness is the building process, and when the hidden one emerges, the public world meets someone it could not have produced in the public spaces. The second archetype is the desert dweller. The desert dweller is the chosen one who has been in the extended private season, the 40-year desert, the long formation in the place where the ordinary world is far, and the public confirmation is unavailable, and the visible fruit is sparse. The desert dweller has developed a specific skill that no public season can fully produce: the skill of finding provision in the desert. Not the provision that the crowd has access to, the provision of the private encounter, the bread on the coals of the juniper tree, the water from the rock, the manna in the morning that was given one day at a time and that could not be hoarded and that required the daily returning to receive. The desert dweller has learned to receive the daily provision of the private encounter as sufficient for the day, not as a plan for the full journey, as the sufficiency of the specific day. This is a profoundly different relationship with provision than the one that the public seasons produce. The public seasons produce the specific kind of provision that is visible and accumulating and confirmation generating. The desert seasons produce the daily bread, and the person who has been built on the daily bread has a different interior than the person who has been built on the accumulating public provision. They have a deeper trust, a more honest dependence, a less conditional peace. The desert dweller knows, in the interior, that the daily bread has come before, that the manna has been in the morning before, that the rock has produced water before. And that knowledge, not as theology but as lived experience, is the specific quality of trust that the desert forms in the person who stays. The desert dweller does not know how long the desert will last. Moses did not know in year 39 that the burning bush was coming. Elijah did not know under the juniper tree that the still small voice would be the next thing rather than the long continued silence. The desert dweller stays in the desert, not because they know the end of the desert, but because the daily provision has been sufficient enough that the staying remains possible. And the staying is the specific faithfulness that the formation requires. The staying in the private space when the public space is calling. The staying in the desert when the crowd is in the city. The staying in the closed-door encounter when the performance would generate more visible confirmation. You are not behind. You are deep. You are not slow. You are being built at the root level that visible confirmation would have prematurely interrupted. You are the desert dweller who is arriving at the end of the desert, not the end of the private practice, the end of the desert season of the private practice. The burning bush is close. The still small voice is forming. What has been built in the extended private season is exactly what the next season will deploy. You have been building it faithfully in the ordinary with the daily bread, and the daily bread has been sufficient for exactly this. The third archetype is the privately commissioned. I want to give the third archetype its specific name, the private commission, not the calling endorsed by a platform, not the calling validated by a crowd. The calling given in the room with the door closed, addressed directly to the specific interior of the specific person it was designed for. The private commission is the most precisely targeted form of the calling available because it bypasses every public channel and goes straight to the one it was designed to reach. You carry the private commission, and the private formation is what builds the person who can carry it faithfully. The privately commissioned is the chosen one, who received their essential calling not in the public setting but in the private encounter, not from a recognized authority in a visible ceremony, from the still small voice in the private room, from the sense of specific direction that came in the interior inventory, from the word that formed in the private declaration before the external world could confirm it, from the burning bush that appeared in the ordinary tending of the ordinary thing. The privately commissioned often struggles with the public validation of what was privately received. The calling that came in the private room does not always come with the credentials that the public world recognizes. The commission that was given in the desert does not always include the endorsement of the palace, and the privately commissioned has often had to hold, in the interior, a clarity about the calling that the exterior had not yet confirmed. This is one of the specific costs of the private formation. The calling is real in the interior before it is visible in the exterior. And the gap between the interior reality and the exterior confirmation is the specific space in which the privately commissioned is tested. Not tested as in punished, tested as in formed. The holding of the private commission in the interior, without the external confirmation, without the credential, without the visible evidence, is the specific exercise that builds the quality of interior certainty that the public deployment will require. Moses held the burning bush commission in his interior through the challenges of Pharaoh before the exterior confirmed that the commission was real. Every no from Pharaoh was an invitation to the privately commissioned to go back to the desert and abandon the calling. Every one was an exercise of the specific interior certainty that the private encounter had built and the commission held. Not because Moses was naturally confident, because the private encounter had been real enough to sustain the interior certainty through the public challenges. You are the privately commissioned. The calling that is in your interior is real. The direction that came in the private space is real. The specific sense of purpose and function and appointed position that the closed-door encounter has been building in you is real. And the public confirmation is coming, not as the validation of the private commission, as the public expression of what was privately built. The exterior will eventually catch up with the interior. And when it does, the quality of what has been built in the private space will be evident in the public expression of it. Type the words I release in the comments right now. This is the fourth declaration of this message. I release the need for the public confirmation before the private commission is real. I release the waiting for the exterior to validate what the interior already knows. I release the version of the calling that requires credentials before the calling is permitted to operate. I release the performance requirement for the private commission. What was given in the private space is real. I release the doubt that the private space was the right place to receive it. Type, I release. Now I want to speak the progressive identity declarations for the chosen one who has been in the private formation. These are not aspirational statements. They are the descriptions of the person who closed the door and stayed in the encounter and has been built by the private formation into exactly who the next season requires. I am the one who is known in the private space, known in the satar, known in the monos, known in the honest interior that the closed door encounter reveals. Not known in the presented version, but in the actual interior, known there and not withdrawn from there, known there and moved toward there, known by the name that the private encounter uses, not the one the public spaces assigned. I am the hidden one whose hiddenness is not a deficit, not a waiting room, not a lesser version of the thing I am supposed to be. The hiddenness is the building, the private formation is the formation. The closed door is the specific condition under which the most significant interior work of my life has happened. I am the hidden one who is hidden by design, concealed in the satar, for the specific purpose of the formation that the public cannot produce. I am the desert dweller who has learned to receive the daily bread as sufficient, who has been in the extended private season and found in it the specific provision of the private encounter, the bread on the coals, the water from the rock, the manna in the morning. I have received daily provision in the desert season. I carry the specific quality of trust that only the desert produces. I am the desert dweller who is arriving at the burning bush. I am the privately commissioned. My calling was given in the private space and is real. The commission of the closed-door encounter is sufficient. I do not require the public validation before the private reality is true. I hold what was given in the burning bush encounter with the interior certainty that the private encounter built. I am the carrier of the specific word that the private formation deposited, and I am walking it toward the specific public moment when it will be spoken and received. I am the one who closes the door and enters the encounter, who practices the sacred stillness, who runs the interior inventory, who speaks the private declaration, who returns to the private space not because the formation requires the performance of a discipline, but because the private space has become home, because the silence has become the charged medium of the encounter, because the closed door has become the threshold of the most real thing I know. There is one more thing I want to say before we arrive at the closing section of this message. It is something about the person who is going to walk out of this private room when this message ends. Because you are going to walk out. The door does not stay closed forever. The desert does not go on indefinitely. The satar is a season, not a permanent state. And the chosen one who has been built in the private formation is going to walk back through the door into the public world. And I want to name who walks out. Not the person who came in, not the person who closed the door at the beginning of this encounter with whatever they were carrying when they came in. A different person walks out. Not dramatically different in the visible sense. The formation is not always visible, but different in the interior sense. Different in the specific quality of the presence they carry. Different in the relationship with silence they have developed. Different in the authority that comes from the private encounter that went deep, and the private commission that was received, and the private identity that was spoken in the declarations. The person who walks out of the private room after a genuine encounter carries the satar forward. The divine concealment does not end when the door opens. It moves with the chosen one into the public spaces. The burning bush was in the desert, but Moses carried the encounter into the palace and into the wilderness and into every confrontation with Pharaoh. The still small voice came to Elijah on the mountain, but what it spoke was carried into the ministry that followed the mountain. The answered prayer of Hannah was received in the private space of the temple, but the fullness of what it produced was carried into the public expression of a life changed by the private encounter. You carry the encounter out the door with you. What is in you now, in this private room, is what goes into the public world when you open the door. The depth, the discernment, the resilience, the authority, the charged relationship with silence, the identity of the hidden one and the desert dweller and the privately commissioned, the specific interior quality that the private formation has produced. All of it walks out the door with you. And I want to tell you something about what the public world receives when the chosen one who has been built in the private formation walks into the room. The public world is hungry for depth, not for performance of depth, for actual depth, the kind that cannot be faked and cannot be manufactured and cannot be produced by any amount of public activity, the kind that comes from the private encounter. The kind that the burning bush produces in the person who was willing to turn aside from the ordinary and approach the unusual thing and stay in the encounter until the commission came. The world the chosen one walks back into when the door opens is a world that has a profound and largely unmet need for the specific quality of presence that the private formation produces. The rooms the chosen one enters after the private encounter are rooms that recognize, often without being able to name what they are recognizing, something different in the person who walks in. The quality of seeing that notices what others miss. The quality of speaking that carries the weight of the private encounter. The quality of being that does not require the room to perform for it and does not perform for the room. That quality is what the private formation has been building in you, and the world that the public seasons of your calling will place you in is waiting for exactly the quality that the private formation has built, not a general spiritual quality. The specific depth of the specific person who has been through the specific private formation you have been through. The formation is not producing a generic chosen one, it is producing the specific chosen one that the specific public moment will require. The desert produced the specific Moses that the specific Pharaoh required. The juniper tree produced the specific Elijah that the specific Jezebel confrontation required. The private prayer of Hannah produced the specific Hannah that the specific covenant required. The private formations were specific to the specific persons and the specific public moments they were building toward. Your private formation is specific to you, and the public moment it is building toward is specific to what you are going to be deployed into, the specific room you are going to walk into, the specific word you are going to carry there, the specific quality of presence that the specific situation is going to need that only the private formation you have been through can produce. I want to speak now about the practical dimension of carrying the private formation identity into the public world, because the identity declarations we walked through are real, and the real test of them is not in the private room where they are spoken. It is in the public spaces where the exterior world will invite the chosen one to forget them. The specific form of forgetting is familiar to any chosen one who has come out of a private season into a public one. The public space, with its metrics and its timelines, and its assessments of progress and its visible confirmation system, tends to reinstate the identity categories it uses for the people who operate in it. And the chosen one who walks into the public space after the private encounter, carrying the identity of the hidden one and the desert dweller and the privately commissioned, will encounter the public space attempting to recategorize them in its own terms. The protection against that recategorization is the regular return to the private space, the ongoing practice of the closed door, not as an escape from the public world, as the maintenance of the specific interior that the public world would otherwise gradually erode. The chosen one who returns regularly to the private encounter stays the person that the private formation built. The one who does not return gradually adopts the exterior identity categories of the public space until the private commission is not gone, but is buried. Still there, but buried. This is why I said earlier that the practice is a practice, not a single experience. Not the burning bush one time and then 40 more years in the desert without another encounter. A regular returning. A daily practice of the closed door. A consistent orientation toward the private space as the source of the interior that the public world is deployed from. The chosen one who establishes this as the fundamental structure of their daily life. Private first, then public. Closed door first, then open door. Interior inventory before the public engagement begins. Private declaration spoken in the morning before the day fills the morning. That chosen one carries the private formation identity into the public spaces in a way that the public spaces cannot erode. They are regularly restored, regularly replenished, regularly reminded of who they are from the inside rather than who the public space is attempting to make them. There is a person whose face you can see right now if you let yourself picture them. Someone in your life who is in the private formation and does not yet have the language for it, who has been in the satar and has been reading it as abandonment, who has been the desert dweller in the year 38 of the desert, wondering why the burning bush has not come. Who is the hidden one who has been told enough times that they are not yet visible that they have started to believe the assessment? I want you to think about that person for a moment, because this message was built for them too, and the most powerful thing you can do in the next 60 seconds before this section of the message ends is send it to them. Not because the message will solve what they are in, because it will give them the language for what they are in. Because the satar named correctly is not the same as the satar unnamed. The desert named correctly as the formation that the burning bush requires is not the same desert as the desert that feels like abandonment. The language changes the relationship with the season. And this message has the specific language that the person you are thinking of needs right now. Send it to them. Take 30 seconds. Let the act of sending be the act of the carrier of the private commission who has received something in the private space and is now moving it toward the person who needs it. That is exactly the kind of movement the private formation builds toward. The receiving in the private space. The carrying of what was received. The releasing of it to the specific person at the specific moment who needs exactly what the private encounter produced. Now, I want to say something about the timing of what is coming next in your specific life. Not in the general sense of the formation moving toward the kairos. In the specific sense of the chosen one who has been in the private season and who, somewhere in the interior, is aware that the season is shifting, not dramatically. Not with the obvious signs that the public world provides when a season changes. With the interior quality of a certain kind of awareness that things are not what they were. That interior awareness of the shift is real. It is the specific kind of knowing that the private formation produces in the chosen one, whose discernment has been sharpened in the closed-door encounter. The burning bush did not announce itself with a public spectacle before Moses arrived to see it. It was simply there, burning, when the one who was ready to see it arrived at the place where it was burning. And the readiness to see it was built in the years of the private formation. You are at the place where the burning bush is burning. The interior awareness of the shift that you are carrying is not wishful thinking. It is the discernment that the private formation built. The seer quality that the closed-door encounter produced. You are seeing what is there to be seen. And what is there to be seen is the specific thing that the private formation of your specific life has been building toward. Stay present in this room for just a little longer. What is coming in the final section of this message is the closing word that this entire private encounter has been building toward. Not a summary, not a conclusion. A specific spoken blessing for the specific chosen one who was willing to close the door and be alone for this encounter, for the hidden one, for the desert dweller, for the privately commissioned, for the carrier of the private commission who has been in the satar and who is now standing at the threshold of the burning bush. The closing word belongs to you. What has been built in the private room is about to be honored, and the honoring of it is the specific act that this message was always walking toward. Before we step into that closing, I want to take you somewhere first, not backward, forward. I want you to enter a specific morning that is not far from where you are. 6 months, maybe less, an ordinary Tuesday, nothing ceremonial about it. You wake to the same house, the same responsibilities, the same external circumstances that are still doing what external circumstances do. But there is something you do before any of it begins. You go to the room, you close the door, and this time, the act of closing the door is not discipline, it is desire. The room has become familiar in a different way. The way that the familiar place where the real thing happens becomes familiar, not obligatory. Expected. The 60 seconds of sacred stillness begin not with trying to quiet what is loud. They begin with settling. The interior knows what to do. It has done this enough times that the practice is not foreign, it is home. The carried weight is lighter. Not because the formation has ended, because the practice has been meeting it, naming it, releasing it, for enough ordinary mornings that what the weight contains has been processed. What cycles now is lighter than what cycled before. The interior inventory runs in 2 minutes. Clear, honest, accurate. You know quickly what is yours and what is not. You set down what is not yours with the ease of the practiced hand. You bring what is yours into the encounter without apology for what it is. The private declaration you speak is not the declaration of someone building certainty. It is the declaration of someone who already has it. The voice in the room is the real voice, not the managed one, not the one that carefully selects what to present, the one that knows what it knows because it has been in the private encounter long enough that the knowing has become reliable. You walk out the door that Tuesday morning specifically different from the person who walked in. Not dramatically different, specifically different. In the quality of how you hear what the people around you are not saying. In the stillness you carry into the room where everyone else is performing. In the particular word you speak at the particular moment that lands with the weight of the person who received it in the private room. The gap between you right now and that Tuesday morning is not time. It is the practice of returning. Door after door, inventory after inventory, declaration after declaration. And for the ones in this room whose interior has the formation imprint, the gap also closes through the specific support that was placed in the description for that specific architecture. The private formation is walking you toward that Tuesday. The room you are in right now is the room that Tuesday is being built in. Chosen one, we are in the sacred space now. You closed the door. You have been in the private encounter for this entire message, and we are now at the place where the message has always been walking. The closing word for the hidden one, for the desert dweller, for the privately commissioned, for the one who was willing to come into the private space and stay. Take a breath right now. Not a quick one, the kind that actually opens something. In through the nose, slowly, until the chest expands. Out through the mouth, longer than feels comfortable, until the interior drops down a level. The physical act of the breath is the beginning of the closing movement. Let the body register that something is being completed. I want to begin with the grateful pause, before the releasing and the declaring. before the spoken blessing at the end of this message. I want to take a moment to honor what you walked through to get to this private space today. What it cost to close the door. What the private formation has cost in the seasons before this moment. What the satar has asked of you. What the desert has required of you. What the holding of the private commission in the interior, without the public confirmation, without the visible evidence, has cost in the interior. The cost was real. The carrying was real. The weight of the extended private season, the long years of the faithful closed-door encounter without the public fruit that would have made the carrying easier, that weight was real. And it deserves to be acknowledged before we step over the threshold and leave the carrying behind. You have been faithful in the private space, in the season when the private space was not comfortable, in the season when the sacred stillness revealed the noise rather than the quiet. In the season when the interior inventory produced more than the inventory could hold, in the season when the private declaration was spoken into the interior without the felt sense of receiving, that would have confirmed that the speaking was real. You were faithful in all of those seasons. You closed the door. You turned aside. You stayed in the encounter, even when the encounter was hard to distinguish from the absence. I want to honor that. The faithful, ordinary, invisible practice of the private encounter. The private formation faithfulness that no public metric can measure and no external observer can fully see. I want to honor it before we close this chapter and step into what the burning bush is announcing. The release belongs to you now. Receive it. I release the performance that I carried into the private space. The presenting and the managing and the covering that the public seasons trained me to bring even into the room where no audience is present. I release the performed version of myself and receive the actual interior as the real one, the one God has been speaking to all along. I release the identity that the extended private season assigned to me, the not yet identity, the still waiting identity, the why have I not emerged identity, the hidden means forgotten identity. I release every identity that the formation season feeling produced and that I mistook for the truth of who I am. I release the need for the public confirmation before the private commission is real. I release the requirement that the exterior validate what the interior already knows. I release the waiting for the credential and the platform and the audience before the calling is permitted to operate. I release the fear that the private space is the end of the story, that the satar is permanent, that the desert does not produce burning bushes, that the closed door is all there is. I release the fear and I receive the truth. The private formation is the preparation. The hiddenness is the building. The desert is the formation for the burning bush. The door does not stay closed forever. I release the carrying that is not mine to carry into the next season, the concerns that belong to God, the timelines that belong to God, the outcomes that belong to God. I release my grip on them and I receive my assignment, which is to walk through the open door with open hands. I release the silence that was assigned as absence and I receive it as presence. I release the desert that was assigned as abandonment, and I receive it as formation. I release the hiddenness that was assigned as failure, and I receive it as the satar of God over a life that is being prepared for something the public cannot produce. I release what the private season felt like, and I receive what the private season actually was. Now the declarations. The private room is not your limitation. It is your formation ground. The closed door is not where your story ends. It is the room where everything essential in your story is being written. I am known in the private space, in the honest interior, in the interior that the closed door reveals and that no public presentation can reproduce. I am known there, completely, without withdrawal, without condition. I am the hidden one, concealed by design, formed in the satar, built in the private encounter. My hiddenness is not my limit, it is my preparation. The depth that is forming in me in the private season is the specific depth that the public deployment will require. I am hidden for a purpose, and the purpose is real. I am the desert dweller. I have been in the extended private season, and I have found the daily bread sufficient. The manna has been in the morning, the rock has produced water, the bread has been on the coals. I carry the specific quality of trust that only the desert forms, and I am arriving at the burning bush. I am the privately commissioned. My calling is real. What was given in the private encounter is real. The commission of the closed-door meeting is sufficient. I do not require the public credential before the private truth is true. I hold the burning bush commission with the interior certainty that the private encounter built. I am the carrier of the commissioned word, built in the private space, held for the public moment, equipped in the closed-door encounter for the open-door deployment. The word I carry is real. The moment it is released into is coming, and I am the specific person for the specific moment, not a lesser version of the person who should be carrying this. The specific person, built specifically, formed specifically, commissioned specifically. I am ready, not almost ready, not becoming ready when more is added. Ready for the burning bush deployment, for the still small voice being spoken into the public moment, for the Hannah prayer that has been received and the fullness of which is about to arrive. I am ready to carry what the private formation built into the public world that needs exactly what the private formation produced. I am loved, in the private space specifically, not despite the honest interior that the private space reveals, including it, the wound and the pattern and the limit and the history, the performance carryover and the unworthiness pattern and the waiting pattern, the full honest interior of the chosen one who has been in the desert for what feels like too long, loved there, moved toward there, known there and not withdrawn from there. And so it is. Take a breath. Let the declarations land. Let the releasing settle. Let the specific word that was meant for the specific interior of this specific chosen one find the place in you that it was sent to reach. Not the place you think it was meant to land, the place it actually reaches. Let it land there. You are not the same person who closed the door at the beginning of this message. The encounter has been real. The private space has done what the private space was designed to do. The satar has sheltered. The monos has produced. The burning bush has been approached. And the person standing on the threshold of the open door right now is the person the private formation was building. Will you do two things before you open the door? The first is press the like button on this video right now, not for the metric, because the pressing of it is the act of saying yes to what happened in this private space, because it is the specific physical act that marks the moment when the chosen one received something in the private encounter. Let the pressing be the signal from your interior to the exterior that something real happened in this room. The second is type the words "I am ready" in the comments. The fifth and final declaration: I am ready to carry what the private formation built. I am ready to walk out of this room as the hidden one who has been built and not broken by the hiddenness. As the desert dweller who is arriving at the burning bush. As the privately commissioned who holds the calling with the interior certainty of the closed-door encounter. I am ready. Type it. Let the typing be the declaration that carries into the public world. Before I close this private space, I want to point one last time to what is in the description and the pinned comment for the specific ones in this room, whose private practice has been running into the specific interior noise I described. The ones whose closed-door encounter has been louder on the inside than the outside. The provision for that specific pattern is there. The link is in the description. For those whose spirit said yes to that provision, when I described it earlier, the door is still open. The bread is still on the coals. Arise and eat. For everyone in this room, share this message with the person whose face came to mind when I spoke about the person in year 38 of the desert, the one who needs the language for what they are in. Send it before you close this window. 30 seconds. Let the private encounter you just had in this room produce its first public fruit immediately. Send it. Chosen one, you closed the door. You turned aside. You stayed. The God who saw Moses in the desert sees you in the private room. The God who came to Elijah under the juniper tree has come to you in this message. The God who received the prayer of Hannah in the private temple has received yours. Every one, every session, every closed-door faithful, honest bringing of the actual interior into the encounter. Go. Walk into the burning bush season with the identity the private formation built. Open the door. And so it is. I want to add something to what was just spoken over you, because the closed-door encounter, when it is real, tends to produce not just peace, but specific clarity. And the specific clarity that this private encounter has been producing in your interior may have surfaced some things that deserve to be named before you walk back through the door. The first thing that the private formation clarity tends to surface at the threshold of the new season is a specific awareness of what needs to change about how the chosen one has been operating in the world. Not a guilt inventory, a kairos inventory. The specific recognition that the person who was built for the desert is not the person who was built for the burning bush deployment, and that the transition from one to the other is not automatic. It requires the specific, intentional choosing of the identity that the private formation built, rather than the identity that the desert season felt like. The choosing of the new identity is not a one-time declaration. It is the practice of the regularly returned to private space. It is the interior inventory practiced the first time in the new season. The private declaration spoken with the new identity as the subject, rather than the formation season self as the subject. The sacred stillness entered with the specific intention of receiving the identity that was built in the private encounter, rather than the one that the desert assigned. The second thing the private formation clarity surfaces at the threshold is a specific awareness of who else needs to know what you just received. Not the content of the private encounter in the performance sense. The fruit of it, the specific quality of presence and discernment and authority that the private encounter produced. There are specific people in the public spaces you are returning to who need the carrier of the private commission to show up differently than the formation season version has been showing up. Not dramatically differently, specifically differently, with the specific quality of seeing and speaking and being that the private encounter built. The people who are waiting for that specific quality of showing up may not know that they are waiting for it. They may not be able to name what is different about the person who returns from the private encounter, but they will notice it. The room notices when the hidden one emerges. The desert notices when the desert dweller arrives at the burning bush. The public spaces are waiting for what the private formation is producing. They are already prepared to receive it, even if they do not have the language to name what they are receiving. The third thing the private formation clarity surfaces is a specific direction, not a plan, a direction. The burning bush did not give Moses a detailed project management framework for the Exodus. It gave him a commission and a direction. Go. Return to Egypt. Bring the people out. The specific next step, the standing before Pharaoh, the speaking of the word that was given in the private encounter, the follow-through of the public expression of the private commission that followed from the direction. But the direction came first. What direction is forming in your interior right now? in the private space of this closing moment of this message. Not a question that requires an elaborate answer, a simple noticing. What is the specific next step that the interior is aware of at this threshold moment? The direction from the burning bush encounter is forming now. It may be as simple as send that message to the person I have been avoiding, or as significant as step into the specific calling I have been preparing for in the private season. Whatever the specific form, the direction is forming in the private space. And the direction from the burning bush encounter is the specific first public step of the post-formation season. I want to speak one more time about the physical practice before this message closes, because the chosen one who returns to the world through the door is returning to an environment that will consistently invite the closed-door formation identity to be replaced by the public performance identity. And the protection against that replacement is the practice, not the belief in the practice. The practice. So I want to say it one more time, simply and practically. Tomorrow morning, before the day begins, close the door. Not for a long time. For the length of 3 deep breaths, plus 60 seconds of sacred stillness, plus the 2-minute interior inventory, plus 1 private declaration spoken aloud, 5 to 10 minutes. That is the daily practice. That is the maintenance of the identity that the private formation has built. That is the ongoing return to the burning bush. Not the dramatic encounter every day, the turning aside, the noticing, the receiving of the daily bread, the speaking of the specific identity in the specific voice of the person who has been in the private encounter. 5 to 10 minutes, closed door, sacred stillness, interior inventory, private declaration, every morning before the public world comes in. That is the specific practical inheritance of this message, the specific thing that carries the private encounter into the daily ordinary life, rather than leaving it as a single significant experience that fades as the public world reasserts itself. Carry it, practice it, return to it. The burning bush is not a memory when you practice the turning aside regularly. It is the recurring encounter that keeps the private formation active and the burning bush commission clear, and the identity of the hidden one who is not hiding but building, of the desert dweller who is arriving at the water rather than wandering in the desert, of the privately commissioned who is carrying the word toward the specific moment it will be spoken. That identity is alive and present and operative in the public world. You are equipped for this. You always were. The private formation built the specific equipment for the specific calling, and the calling is not in the future tense. It is in the present tense. The burning bush is now. The still small voice is now. The Hannah prayer has been received and the Hannah answer is already forming. The commission of the closed door encounter is already operative in you. You carry it now. You carry it out the door. You carry it into the specific room and the specific relationship and the specific situation that the next step of your life is placing you in. The private space has prepared you for everything that the public spaces are about to ask. You are not behind. You are not under-resourced. You are not the depleted version of the person who should have arrived at this threshold more whole. You are the specifically built, fully equipped, closed-door formed, burning bush commissioned, privately called, desert-prepared chosen one who is standing exactly where the private formation was always walking you toward. Go. The door is about to open, and what walks out of it is exactly what the world on the other side needs to meet. And so it is. Let me stay with you for one more moment before the final close, because there is something that tends to happen in the interior of the chosen one at the end of the private encounter that I want to speak directly into. The specific vulnerability of the threshold moment, the specific interior question that forms at the edge of the open door. The question is this: Will it be different when I walk back through the door? Not different in the world, different in me. Will I carry what I just received into the ordinary? Will the private encounter survive the contact with the public world? Will the identity of the hidden one and the desert dweller and the privately commissioned remain available when the ordinary returns, with its ordinary metrics and its ordinary demands and its ordinary invitation to forget the private, encounter and perform for the public one? The answer is yes, with the practice, and the practice is the daily returning. Not as a heroic commitment, as a simple recognition that the fire of the burning bush stays burning in the person who regularly turns aside to see it. That the still, small voice remains available to the person who regularly creates the private space to hear it. That the Hannah prayer remains the active prayer of the person who regularly brings the honest interior into the private encounter. The fire does not go out. The still, small voice does not stop speaking. The Hannah prayer does not become unavailable. What becomes unavailable without the practice is the specific quality of interior sensitivity that is needed to perceive the fire and hear the voice and pray the honest prayer. And that sensitivity is maintained by the practice, by the daily closed door, by the regular turning aside. You have the practice now. You have the three tools. You have the interior inventory and the sacred stillness and the private declaration. You have the language for the satar and the monos and the commissioned word. You have the archetypes, the hidden one, the desert dweller, the privately commissioned, to orient yourself within the private formation rather than against it. You have everything the practice requires to be sustainable in the daily ordinary. And for the ones whose private practice has been running into the specific neural obstacle of the loud interior, the provision for that is in the description. The link is there. The door is open. The specific natural support for the formation-shaped interior noise is available to you. It does not replace the practice. It makes the practice possible in the way the practice was designed to be. It clears the interior so that the sacred stillness is genuinely still, and the interior inventory can actually hear its own contents, and the private declaration lands in an interior that is present enough to receive it. Go to the description, read what is there. If it is for you, the interior will know. And if it is for someone else, you know, the 30 seconds it takes to send them this message is the act of the privately commissioned, moving the private commission into its first public expression. Chosen one, we are at the end of the private encounter. The door is about to open. What walks out of it is not what walked in. The private formation is real. The encounter has been real. The releasing and the declaring and the blessing of the hidden one by the one who placed them in the satar for the specific purpose of what the satar builds, all of it was real. The burning bush was in the desert, and Moses walked toward the palace with what it gave him. The still small voice was on the mountain, and Elijah walked back into the world with what it spoke. The private prayer was in the temple, and Hannah walked out of the temple with the answered prayer already forming in the interior before it was visible in the exterior.